Hi. I'm cutting in to let you know that the audio on this episode is a little rougher than we usually do. Microphones are kind of a crapshoot, and this one, it just ended up being something we had to work on a little bit. It's still listenable, we think, and we've worked on it to make it better. So yeah, it's just a heads up. We're aware of the issue, and we hope that you can listen through anyway, because this is a fun episode. So no plug or anything. Let us get on with the show.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And I'm Mai Sinclair.
And this is Bonfire Side Chat. It is a historic favorite. It's a systems-heavy favorite. It's a Stancy favorite.
Yeah, Stancy. I like Stancy.
Stancy.
Yeah.
Stance.
And,
Stance.
And this week we are doing a very cursory look at Nioh, which is a game developed by Team Ninja and published here in America by Sony and in Japan by Tecmo Koei. And boy, is this a Tecmo Koei game. Here this year in February of 2017. And as you heard, we're joined by Mai. Thank you so much for coming along. We desperately need a ringer for this. Yeah, and it's super cool to have you to have you on a show, because you are really involved in the community.
Well, it's a really, really good community, really supportive.
Thank you.
Yeah. We pulled Mai up from our Slack channel, kind of recruited you for this because as we had mentioned, and we mentioned this last episode as well. Cole and I did not beat this game. I think we both got like roughly about a third through it.
Yeah,
I think is probably the spot, or halfway through.
I put about 20 hours into it.
Yeah, played it for a while, but wasn't going to beat it. So we wanted to get somebody in who could talk about the late game. And Mai is somebody who, and this is for the audience. I'm not talking about you like you're not here. This is for at this point I'm talking to. I'll use this voice when I'm talking to you.
And when you hear the beep, turn the page.
Yeah, So Mai is somebody who we've interacted with a lot and trust and like and have I've talked about this game with you on our Slack channel a whole bunch, and I just thought it would be great to have you on and trusted you to be cool about it. Be cool about it. I wanted somebody to be cool about it. So
I think we got our dumb arguments out of the way in Slack, so we don't have to replay those.
For everyone's benefit.
Yeah.
Got the poison out. Can you talk just kind of briefly, about your relationship to the fan, the franchise, I guess, like, how you came into Dark Souls and, kind of what your relationship, how you got into Nioh and the like.
First I beat was Demon Souls. I bought it when it came out, but I didn't play it until Dark Souls 1 was already out. I started playing Dark Souls 1 and fell off super quick, jumped back and ended up finishing Demon Souls, then did Dark Souls 1, and this is all not too long ago. By the time I beat Dark Souls 1, Scholar was up. So, but since then, I've beat Scholar, including the Ancient Dragon. I beat Bloodborne, and I've been bashing my head against the wall of PS3 because I refuse to not play it next. So I was immediately on board for Nioh, just kind of as a trying it. But then I really kind of fell in love with it when I played it. It's got some differences I parry a lot, and Nioh has times where you can do that, but plenty of times where you have to dodge, especially on the bosses, and we'll get into that. But overall, especially after losing myself so much against walls and DS3, it's really helped my love of Nioh.
Mm.
So where gameplay-wise, I just love it. History-wise, I studied this stuff in school, but I guess for listener benefit, I went to school in Japan. I was born in Osaka. But I haven't been in school in almost 25 years. So if I get things wrong, please be kind.
Yeah. Well, I think that I would urge people to judge on a curve. So just judge the things that you get wrong based on how often I'm going to mispronounce things, and Kole and I are going to get things wrong. So you'll do significantly better than we do. There's another reason why we thought you'd be a great fit for this episode is because you're really familiar with the source material, even though this game does take a lot of liberties with that, and not just the obvious ones, is my understanding. It's not just like, oh, there weren't monsters, but also the actual story is kind of this weird mashup of a lot of different historical figures of this time, kind of like a who's who of this period in mythology and history,
which is very Koei Tecmo.
Yeah. That's totally their MO, and we'll get into kind of how this game presents this, which I have a lot of issues with. So this game kind of started out. This had kind of an incredibly long and kind of arduous development. Started development in 2004 with this old unproduced Akira Kurosawa script, which is kind of fascinating. And it started as this kind of a passion project for Shibusawa. Sorry, I'm gonna mispronounce that Japanese names, and it's not because I don't care. It's just I'm not good at it, and I apologize.
I can't say Sirshi, so
okay.
You're allowed.
I can only say Sirsha because the game does provide a pronunciation guide for it. Yeah, in a game that has several different languages present. Hey, here, have some Gaelic. Yeah. But this original script didn't really have supernatural elements. It was, more about, more a story about this period in history. No developer's treatment actually worked well enough. It kind of stayed within Tecmo Koei. One version of it was like a more traditional Japanese RPG, strangely enough. But it landed with Team Ninja in 2010. And then further development took about, let's say, 6 or 7 years as Team Ninja and Shibusawa kind of added these supernatural elements to the script and basically pulled and replaced as many parts as they could until they kind of ship of Theseus the original Kurosawa script.
It has almost, there's early kind of promotional images, and it has almost nothing in common. Like the only things that were consistent over all the different versions of this were the setting and a blonde dude. So there's posters of like a super ripped blonde guy with long like Fabio hair, like not posters, but like marketing images that were for this. They're kind of fascinating. So this is when it became this kind of action RPG because the Team Ninja staff were big fans of the Souls games and said that the popularity of Souls, kind of helped save Nioh from cancellation. This is explicitly something where it is a blending of those two things.
Yeah.
There are also some seeds that are straight up Kurosawa.
Oh, yeah.
Are sprinkled in every now and then. You'll get in and you'll be like, I'm watching a Kurosawa film.
Yeah. Like the cinematography of this particular battle or this interaction is very Kurosawa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I feel like it's more just an homage. Just kind of giving a little bit to our root.
Yeah. So they modeled, a lot of the combat off of the Souls games. And kind of notably, they involved the community in the development. So they had the systems laid down in some areas, and they ran over the course of about a year between 2016 and 2017, these demos of the game, first an alpha, then a beta, and then something they call the last chance. That if you played and beat them, you would get DLC for the main game to kind of fine tune the actual play experience. And so they made a lot of changes to some of the systems, some of the controls, and especially some of the difficulty based on some of those early demos that were put out.
Yeah, which is great.
Yes.
Like I love it when developers do that. Like the ability to change even after a game comes out is an advantage. Into this medium. I've said that a bunch of times, and it's really cool to see a developer actually like take feedback. Yeah. Because the early demos I played of this were much harsher and kind of unreasonably difficult. in the actual game, which like when I was coming into this, I was really expecting that to be my big bone to pick with it, and it's not really. Like it's not nearly as hard as I was expecting it to be.
No.
So that that's something that I feel like probably got adjusted based on those demos, because a lot of people had said, like, hey guys, dial it back a sec. So it's pretty obvious why we're covering this on Bonfireside Chat. Like, it is explicitly Souls-like and everything, and people really wanted to hear us talk about it. And then we kind of tried it and weren't super into it, and then people were like, don't bother. And then other people were saying don't bother because they kind of fell off it. It's an insanely popular game. Like, it's really well reviewed.
Yeah, it's
a lot of people really like
best-selling game, I think, in North America.
Yeah. Like, so it's a very popular game, but the response from our community or our audience has been really weirdly mixed. Like, hey, you guys got to do Nioh. Hey, whatever you do, don't do Nioh. Hey, if you're going to do Nioh, I don't want you to do Nioh if you don't like it, et cetera, et cetera. And like, at a certain point, we've already put in the crime, so we're going to do the time, I guess, or
right.
vice versa. And also, I think there are interesting things to say about this, even though it ended up definitively like super not being for me.
Yeah.
The Souls community has kind of gone back and forth on this. Like, I know I know a lot of people are super fans on it. I've also read, reactions to it that are just like, this is not Souls enough to be really a Souls game. And there are a lot of, and I think this is a symptom of, and we'll get into this, is this kind of systems bloat that the game has. Specifically, this kind of loot-based, high-level play you can do where you spend like a lot of time kind of maximizing these items for endgame content.
Yeah.
That was kind of what had sparked our debate, too, is because I had most recently played Endgame. And after you get about halfway through, a lot of the Souls-like feel of it drops away to feel more character action-y. It's still the same thing. It's just it ends up becoming where you never worry about your stamina again. Like, outside of boss battles, on regular enemies, they die, and then you recover your key. But you never actually have to worry about managing your key in regular fights.
Yeah. And I think that
with the systems.
For sure. Like, well, I think there's definitely elements of that even early on too. Like, you can, once you master that mechanic, like, it's very character action-y. It feels a lot like, to me, it feels really Bloodborne-y in how I actually play it, regardless of whether that's, there are more kind of advanced techniques to it that you can engage with. But I never, again, I didn't find that I had to, which kind of, again, it's a weird thing for the game. And again, I only got to end the Spider Castle and then stop. So maybe later is when you really have to start, getting into these combos and getting into this other stuff. But I just didn't really have to. Like, I didn't run into too many roadblocks.
Yeah. Whereas I really liked doing, those timing-based mechanics and messing around with doing that, even if I didn't need to. Like, that was what was interesting about this to me.
Well, I liked the timing-based mechanics. I mean, like the real deep, like forging your weapon into its like kind of ultimate form. Like, and also like learning these, like buying these combos, getting really deep into the magic system. Like the actual key pulse part of it, and mastering my weapon is the one thing that I consider to be like an unequivocal win. To the game. Like, I think that's 100% and super cool. Really, really fun. I just, and then that for me butted up to, and we're getting way ahead of ourselves, and I apologize, but like butted up into the problem with there just not being enough variety to the game. So like, I just got sick of fighting the same enemies with my super mastered tool set. And
continuing our way ahead of ourselves, if you're doing these certain submission duels, you'll almost always get a katana. So if you're a straight normal, I wasn't. But if that's the build you're doing, you'll always have something that's kind of designed to fight the next boss you're going to encounter in the regular mission.
Yeah. I kept finding swords, and I'm like, I'm not using swords. Like, get these swords off me. Like,
I kept finding swords, and I was like, well, I guess I better use swords because this looks really good.
Nice. Forget them.
Yeah. The one take on the like, oh, what is this? Is it fish or fowl? Like, well, what's the deal? That I kind of disagree with. People really emphasize, hey, this is Diablo like, hey, this is more Diablo than Souls. Like, that to me speaks to like the meta system of it more so than like it feels like a Souls game to me, because you really cannot sleep through any particular individual encounter. right? Like you do have to be engaged, and you are doing this timing based. This you are managing your distance. You are fighting a Souls type enemy. Whereas with Diablo, I really very much take that as something that you're not as engaged with.
Mashing.
Right? Yeah.
It's I mean it's mostly the loot system I think is what draws people to that.
Yeah. That's it. That's the only Diablo-like aspect.
Yeah.
And it's so weird. Like it's so like having everyone explode into a piñata of like trash. Every time you kill them, every monster is full of trash.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, I can sell it. I don't, but then it has an inventory limit and stuff. Like this is the way the systems jut up against each other in this game is something I have a real problem with. And like that ends up kind of becoming, it doesn't feel Diablo-y to me, but it does feel like a Diablo system, like kind of stitch on to something that does not need it. Like does not benefit from it, does not need it, Yeah. And again, and just my take, not trying to present the official Bonfireside chat take on it.
no,
as such. But that's where I came away from it. Just like, why am I spending all of this time in my inventory sorting through garbage? Like this does not feel like a cool samurai if I'm just stopping to pick up every wooden sword that drops.
There are tricks to it, and it became, for me at least, where inventory management was 2 to 5 minutes out of any given level. That's it.
Yeah.
But that's that they gave you some tools to do a workaround. That doesn't make it good.
Yeah. And then it also becomes, what does it add, right? So like because you can work around it, what am I getting from it? I never found anything so far outside the curve to feel really cool. Like I never like had that, and that's the kind of benefit that you get to a Diablo loot system is every once in a while you get the ultra unique mega drop. Mm-hmm. And it disrupts the power curve for a little bit, but like the power curve was really flat for me kind of throughout. So those things might have been possible.
The forging, forging and the ability to pass on inheritance from weapon to weapon, and so many of the bosses, if you could exploit their elemental weakness, become much easier. And so that's where it becomes. But as you said, it's a high level strategy you didn't feel the need to do.
Yeah, and that's not a weird brag or anything. Like I didn't get that far into the game.
No.
So like the fact that this was not super hard for me is not, whipping out my EP, and it's just I only got to a third through the game. So
no, yeah, and to provide an alternate view on that, like the idea of engaging with the inventory system to maximize something like that appeals to the management side of me. It looks like something that I would really fall deep down into. But by the time I realized that's what was going on, I had just a backlog of trash that I had to work through.
Lock button is your friend.
Yeah.
So let's while before when we get to we'll get to more, because this is another segment which I'm pretty cranky about, but we'll get this out of the way. We talk about the kind of plot and setting that we deal with here.
Yes.
And this is not, I just want to also point out that this is not me shitting on Japanese mythology or history. No. It's entirely how this game decides to present the story that I have problems with. It's not the actual story itself, which is fine, and cool.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. So this is, like we mentioned, it's drawn from this kind of folklore and history. Most of the characters that you interact with in this game are actual figures from Japanese history. Kole has it here in the notes as like a Japanese Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Which is, fairly accurate.
Yeah.
Not a bad way to put it.
Yeah.
And, you're going to recognize some of these names, like, if you have been playing video games developed in the East for a long time, you're going to recognize something like, Hattori Hanzo, you're going to recognize, Oda Nobunaga, figures like that. But it gets, to my mind, and I don't know a lot about this, and Gary also doesn't know about it. That's a little bit, again, why we brought Mai here. You're going to get those broad strokes. They dig deep, it seems like to me, to bring out these people. Even your main character is somebody, who, is, in Japanese history, like is from that. He is a fictionalized version of that. Like, I don't think that the original, the original William Adams did not have a mermaid guardian angel, but yeah, like he did. Oh no, I'm so crestfallen. But he did exist. Like he was, one of the first Western samurai. Yeah.
He opened the door and then closed it to allowing foreigners into Japan. Actually. So,
oh wow! So he was responsible for the isolation.
After he died,
Okay.
the decision was to kick out his children, ban everybody from Japan who was a child of a Westerner, to not allow any Westerners in. And that included, of course, because this is Japan, if you were a woman who had married a white man or any other Westerner, you were out also.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no idea that happened that early.
The toe-headed purge.
And that lasted until the Admiral Perry. So.
Yeah. But the game takes place, during the Sengoku period in 1600, which is, one of many several civil wars that took place, in medieval Japan. This is specifically concerning itself with the rise of Tokugawa as shogun.
And the Edo period.
And that stuff is all real. But this is used as a backdrop for this invasion of these yokai. Whose stock has never been higher. Like I see that word yokai all the time in the toy aisles and stuff because
because of Yokai Watch.
Yeah, because of the Yokai Watch. So like yokai is like the word on every kid. It's like an invasion of Bakugan. If that had happened like a couple of years ago, and there's one of them that's like a Bakugan yokai. So it's a little bit of both worlds. But these yokai are these demons and who want this there's this magical entity called Amrita.
Yes.
That they are looking for.
Yes, and certain human actors that we're going to meet are also looking for Amrita because it is it is this universal energy source almost. It's the what is it, the TV tropes term applied, phlebotomium or whatever, with the magical element that causes everything to happen here. And these yokai are based on monsters in Japanese folklore. Again, you see these regular enemies, and like all of them have Wikipedia entries, or most of them do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they're Wikipedia legit. So William, the reason why he is our main character in this fiction, not in history, is that he has this guardian spirit named Circe, and that kind of helps him find this Amrita. And there's also this kind of subplot which the game doesn't seem concerned with to me, except with the main antagonist. Well, he is, but we spend so little time on this. It's very weird because the setup for this game bears little relation to like what the play of it feels like to me. But there's this whole kind of plot with the British government trying to get the Amrita to win a war against the Spanish, and this alchemist named Edward Kelly. Who stole.
Wow, we are language winners today.
Yeah, I just I'm losing all language. I lose all language. There is all aching. Steals Circe, and William breaks out of the Tower of London to pursue him to Japan, and also kind of deal with this this threat of this impending war in the West that is again we don't spend very much time with. Feels like.
Oh, I had to look up Edward Kelly because I didn't know much about him. Apparently, by the way, he died in like 1596 or something, so he shouldn't be here. But he's supposedly like the Philosopher's Stone guy. And I guess that's what they're using Circe as. It never explains why that is such a more useful guardian spirit than any other guardian spirit in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know why there is explicitly a Gaelic guardian spirit when pretty much every single other guardian spirit we see except for one on Yasuke, is kind of endemic to Japan. Is from there. So it's very strange. I'm positive there is something buried in the game in the game lore notes, which are overwhelming even for me. That might explain some of that.
Yeah,
possibly. I mean, I just beat the DLC today, and the DLC just retrans the main story. But
fun!
That sounds familiar.
But I never saw anything that actually explained why Circe is so much more powerful as a tool for him.
Yeah. But like, there's a whole backstory with Circe, taking, saving William's life and becoming kind of a lifelong companion to him. And Kelly has, taken her to Japan in order to kind of foment this civil war and bring out as many yokai as possible so he can harvest it and bring it back to Britain is kind of the macro plot of this. There's also you know, a little bit of his master plan, which I don't know if this is spoilers or not, but he wants to because this is a Tecmo Koei thing, Oda Nobunaga has to factor in. He's trying to resurrect Nobunaga. And, you know, you are working with Hattori Hanzo, or the historical Hattori Hanzo's third grandson, I think this is. He's not actually...
Justice, yeah. I mean, third grandson as far as the name goes, but it's the son of the one most people know of.
Okay, there we go.
So,
Cool.
So it was his father that most people think of.
But this is not the one who made the Kill Bill sword.
No, that's completely unrelated.
Okay. But yeah, but you're best buds with Hanzo, and you are working with Tokugawa Ieyasu to fight off these yokai. You're like his special forces for these monsters that are wreaking havoc that nobody can see but people with guardian spirits.
And spoiler, he will resurrect him.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Hey, Cole.
Yeah?
Terrible shirt for you, asshole.
Okay.
Hattori Funzo from the Simpsons Funzo episode. Where's the little Funzo with the sword?
Oh, he's got a little eye patch?
Yeah. Because everybody loves that season 11 Simpsons episode. Funzo.
Oh, man. I've forgotten about Funzo. Y'all
forgot
about
Funzo.
Yeah. I scooped you. There are several mechanics this shares kind of explicitly with Souls-like or Souls games, or has kind of in common, and there's some minor variations, but we're going to kind of go through those starting out here. Yeah.
One of the big differences, though, is that there's not an open or a connected world or an open world. You select missions from a menu and submissions from kind of the same area. One of the things they do with these submissions is they'll reuse the same area but kind of recontextualize it.
Yeah.
So sometimes it will be, major, like this village that was not on fire is now on fire. This village that was on fire is no longer on fire. Mostly it's a toggle between fire. But sometimes there's some other kind of things. And you start out in different levels. You're kind of just dealing with a smaller section of the level also.
And some of the submissions are new levels, completely new.
Yeah.
And most of them are actually kind of the game's best content because they're short.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, here's a bite. I mean, some of them are just trash as far as they're horrific to do, but most of them are actually pretty fun.
Yeah, like there's some of them that have like weird goals. Like there's one in the first kind of like mine tunnels level where you are just chasing after a kappa. Like that is your goal.
Music whenever it gets close to you. Kind of like.
Yeah, like there's this dude who says, "Hey, I dropped this important treasure and a cop I got a hold of it. So go down here to the lower level." And then like that is a good kind of introduction to the way these kappas work. They're kind of more aggressive, quicker, and more evasive versions of like the crystal
lizards.
Yeah, crystal lizards, right?
And they don't have to bow back if you bow to them. Well, it's like that's like the one thing I know about Kappa folklore, and they don't do it.
They will try and reach up William's butt, though.
Well,
and they're all forgiven.
Also, spoiler: most of the submissions are that.
Okay.
I've lost my great family heirloom weapon in a tunnel. Go get it.
Man, people keep losing swords in tunnels. Like, just like I want William to bring the scabbard to the east and solve this problem. Like, here's a pocket for your sword, folks. Like,
just let me show you this invention: the wallet chain.
Yeah, like a bunch of ska samurai.
Just pick it up. Pick it up.
Yeah,
pick it up.
Like, well, no, you pick it up. A kappa got it. The first time I bowed to a kappa and it didn't actually respond the way that kappas respond, as we all know from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, I was furious. This is something that, just because I don't know where else I would put it, these submissions have a weird impact on the level design of the main missions in a way that didn't become clear to me until like roughly when I quit, which is that the levels are designed with these submissions in mind. So there'll be weird kind of annoying dead ends and stuff. I would find like, this is kind of a corner that looks significant. There's nothing in it. And then when you do a submission, it's where you would start. So they kind of, I feel like they have kind of a negative impact on the main level design of the levels. It's not always noticeable, but it's most noticeable to me in the water village, which I kind of fought tooth and nail to get to like 2 corners that didn't even have a Kodama in it.
Yeah.
So it was there's some missions are a mixed bag. Some of them are pretty fun. I definitely had fun with some of them.
Yeah.
Or a bonfire delight. That's
yeah.
Yeah, that's a strange mission. I spent way more time on that than I probably should have, actually. Yeah. So you have experience points, like souls, like you would get with souls or blood echoes in Amrita. And you also have money, but money is separate. You don't actually use Amrita to buy or, commission smithing, and you only drop your souls when you die, along with your guardian spirit, but we're going to get to that later.
Yes.
And this separation between experience and money is actually a really, it's a pretty big deal. You're going to amass, at least I did, much more money than you would ever actually use.
And that does get directly stated, kind of like Solar and PS1 explaining why PvP can exist, where it seriously directly in one of the cutscenes says, it is because I am here that you can die and be reborn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So him having the super guardian spirit is why he's immortal in the first place.
Yes. And other characters that have guardian spirits, they interact with Amrita in different ways. If somebody gets Amrita who does not have a guardian spirit, they will turn into a monster or get yokaiified. Whereas people who do, they can use it to make themselves more powerful.
So are they the yokai watch?
It's the sequel to Overwatch. That's the Nioh Overwatch.
All along the yokai watchtower.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the spot where you die becomes something called a revenant, which is something that it's very similar to like a red soapstone. Becomes a kind of a permanent soapstone where players can summon a version of your build into their world. Like they don't summon you, they summon your build in to fight you and your equipment set, and then they get a chance of getting one of your pieces of equipment.
Yeah. And Mai, you told me yesterday that you've done, you generally fight a lot of these revenants in order to get some of the additional kind of perk points that we get. Like how do these fights articulate?
A lot of them, I think they fight much better than the player would, because what they'll end up doing is they'll pull from your skill pool of what you can do, as well as your ammunition and your weapons, and they'll use every verb you have.
Oh, jeez.
Plus, they'll use elixirs. Not often. Usually, you can stop them from using elixir, but they'll use elixirs. And, they'll do anything the player would be able to do. And I think most players in a PvP wouldn't.
Yeah.
People tend to kind of stick to, this is the couple things I do. So, I don't find them particularly difficult, which is why I fight a lot of them. But I do think it's kind of interesting to see moves I would never normally see from someone.
Yeah.
And most cases I'll fight them all. When you get into a place where there's like 5 on the ground, I'm going to fight 1 or 2. That's it.
Yeah.
I almost
they reset when you rest in a shrine. They reset.
Yeah. So you can do more of them if need be. I never did these. I just didn't. Wasn't looking for extra fights. And I guess the idea would be you could do that if you see one of them has a piece of equipment you really want. Because you'll get a chance.
That's one of them. And then when we get to the tea house much later, we can go over the appearance copy system, which allows you to actually change and play as another character. And the cost of that is glory, which is what these guys drop.
Yeah. So many systems. Oh my god.
Yeah, and we haven't even started. This is 10% of the systems in this game.
Yeah,
we've covered.
So instead of having bonfires, you have shrines. And I love these shrines once you get all the Kodamas. Yeah, Gary?
Or no, I'd say like.
Oh. Sorry, I thought you did. Oh yeah, and they start playing their little instruments and stuff.
They're very cute. Like the Kodama are extra super cute.
Oh yeah, I want a Kodama plushie. But yeah, you can do a lot of stuff here, but primarily you're going to rest here, and this will reset the level except for certain strong enemies, specifically yokai that rise up from yokai realms, which we'll talk about later, or certain mimics, if that's correct, Mai.
Yes. Also, it's kind of like a slight spoiler, but there are some bosses that will kind of appear in stages as regular enemies sometimes later on.
Okay.
And they won't respawn either.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Let's kind of a blanket, not worry about spoilers. So there will be spoilers in this. I think that most people are listening to this probably have decided if they're going to play it or not.
Going to. Okay.
Yeah. This is a spoiler cast from here on out. Spoilers all over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of through the levels, we talked about Kodamas. So there are these little kind of tree spirits who are real into bowls. They wear bowls. They like hanging out with them. They're very cute, as we mentioned. They have different benefits they can get you. So the way it kind of works is for each set of levels, there is a maximum number of Kodama you can kind of rescue. In each level, there's a certain number of them hidden. You kind of get them. They're cumulative for that zone, and then they reset when you move to a new zone. And you can set them to kind of give you different buffs. Or to kind of regulate the amount of Estus you get, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, that's a guaranteed benefit. The more
gotcha.
the more Estus equivalent you're going to have.
Yeah.
You can set them to find more Estus, but that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, you can.
So their
Okay.
benefits are all pure drop based. It's I want to get more Amrita from enemies I kill. I want to get more Estus from drop rates. I want to get more weapon drops. I want to get more armor drops, or I want to get more gold drops.
Yeah. Your starting elixirs are governed by how many of the Estus or elixir Kodama you found. The different hats indicate which ones they maximize, and you're always going to want to get those to get those Estus Kodama rather. Yeah.
I actually use Amrita ones.
Okay.
Because it's experience. Because I started using the elixir ones, but then I discovered I'm always full up. Yep. As far as drops, the drops aren't that bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Plus, they're scattered in the levels. Sometimes you can find them.
Yeah.
Extra will go to your storehouse though, so maybe that's not a bad move.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have it set to increase your drops for Estus, you're going to want to find all the Kodama that give you kind of greater maximum Estus when you die.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this is, again, just, I'm going to throw things out when they come up. Like the fact that this resets infuriates me.
Yeah. It was pretty rough when I left that first region. I'm like, oh, I have three flask pulls now.
I hate it. Like it is. I mean, the idea is to make you explore. I get it, but like, make me do that because your levels are fun and cool, and like, put other things there, not like a basic function of play.
Yeah.
This is part of the problem with the random loot system. In the second level of the game, I found a charm you could wear that gives you Kodama sets.
Oh God.
Yeah.
So I would just wear it. They all show up on a mini map, and I find them.
Oh jeez.
And then once I found them all, then I swap it out to another access. They're like rings for people who don't.
Yeah.
Think of like Dark Souls rings.
It's cool that can happen, but you still have to find them. You have to, like, in that first level, you're always not going to have your full Estus in the first level of a new zone because you haven't gone through the different levels of that zone that are going to give you those Kodama, those Estus Kodamas.
Yeah.
So it's always this reset, even if the time to getting it just didn't feel like it added anything to me.
Yeah.
Like it felt like a weird, like, basic, function of the game that I shouldn't have had, kind of crippled for me. Even if there is like a way to get around it, I just don't know what it adds. Like,
it's them trying to get you to explore when the loot is not going to motivate you to do so.
Yeah. I wish that there was a way for that to not happen immediately when you go to a new region, because the first level that you go to in that region is going to immediately be just difficult in an outsized way, and also in a way that, like, I don't know, I haven't seen happen in a Souls-like game. It's not like, when I go to the Duke's Archives, all of a sudden I have to find more shards for my shit. I think I'm mixing up like the mechanics of 5 different games in that sentence, and I'm sorry.
Well, it's again, mechanics are going to go round and around. I don't. The idea, I think, is to incentivize exploration.
And I felt great whenever I saw Kodama. Like, oh yeah, let me get that little guy. Tell him how to go home.
I mean, but I just wish they hadn't tied them to healing.
Yeah.
Like a basic verb. They should only have been benefits.
Yeah.
Finding Kodama should have only been, a good thing, not something that, like, I started with and now I have lost.
Yeah.
And when the game first came out, people thought it was the number of shrines you found.
Oh, yeah. I could also see that.
What determined the number of elixirs, but then we kind of figured out, no, it is the number of Kodama you found.
Yeah.
And yeah, if they just tied it to the blessings, nobody would complain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. No, and I'll jump on this grenade. I'm just terrible at the game, and I should have gotten good, and not having as many elixirs should have been fine.
Yeah, I mean that's what people are going to say is like, oh, it was a wonderful challenge to have to do the hard mission with 3 elixirs, but it just I don't. No, I don't know. It's just even if it was an increased challenge to have that your healing kind of reduced in that way. There are more interesting ways to increase challenge. Yeah. How about you introduce a 7th type of enemy that I've never seen before? That'd be cool, huh? Like you can make it so I don't fight the same ogre over and over, ogre and ogre.
Oh, but did you see this one has crystals growing out of it?
There's this. It's such an uninteresting way to pump up the challenge. Mm-hmm. And it's every time I went to a new zone, it was just like, okay, fine, fuck this. Like, it was so demoralizing. Like, I hate that mechanic so much. It's still a net change, but it's taking something away as opposed to demanding something new. Yeah. Yeah. And just, it's, I was going to say that like, oh, that first level in a new zone is going to be inherently harder because you're going to be fighting new stuff, but you're really like often not. No. So it's not that. It's just like, the second zone you go to where you first deal with the poison mines, like that's a new mechanic you're dealing with though. Yeah. Like it's not a new enemy really, but you're fighting, you're dealing with this new mechanic, and like that's really frustrating when I'm often going to get poisoned and I've reduced my ability to heal here. So,
and when we get there, that's probably my favorite poison level in any Souls game.
It's pretty good.
I do.
I like the way that you have emphasis over it. I think the boss is a real trash fire, but I think I like the way that you have kind of dominion over the poison. But I wish I had Estus. Like I just don't see what that adds. Like Well, I mean, what it did for me was give me a half-hour chore of firing up YouTube, seeing a guide to get all the Kodama on that level, and then just going through and finding them. Yeah.
You gotta have that Kodama sense charm.
Yeah, the game gotta give it to me.
Why didn't you get the drop, Cole? Why didn't you win that dice roll? Yeah. God, you have to roll a 17, Cole. Why didn't just do it?
Also, so I did a search for Kodama plush. All that I'm finding is stuff from Princess Mononoke, which is a fine enough movie. However, it is not the same design.
Like, it is more typical. That's more what Kodama usually look like.
Yeah. Oh man.
So let's talk about combat, because this is the big draw here, I feel like, and this is what most people that I've talked to really love about this game, and I also think is good.
So good. Yeah. Because I like character action games.
Yeah, it's very fast paced. Yeah. There's this huge emphasis on dodging, even though there is a weird emphasis on blocking too. Like if you get hit, you have to block to break the combo. You can't dodge out of a combo. Right. Which is something that's a huge difference with Souls, and that drove me crazy until I got used to it, and then I was fine with it.
Yeah. And also,
once you get used to it, it works really well.
Oh, yeah. Like, for me, it was about realizing, even though I don't have a shield, my block is incredibly effective. I'm used to, with a two-handed weapon. Block. Yeah, weapon block being real shitty. No, it's actually really good here. And because of how responsive this is, you can fire off a block or a dodge at just like the last minute. Or the last minute, the last second of the last frame, and still have it.
You have 60 short seconds.
This isn't AD&D second edition.
It's a turn.
But you know what I mean. The combat is really like responsive and crisp, and I like that.
Totally.
Especially if you have a high parry stat on your weapon, which will utterly confuse people because it has nothing to do with actual parrying. But.
Right.
And it's something you have to unlock, which is another thing entirely. But the cool thing about the parry is that, and I think, Mai, you might have been the first person to tell me this, because I was on the Slack kind of saying, like, how the fuck do you parry in this game? What button is it? And you told me it was a skill. And the thing about parrying is that there's less risk to it than a Souls game, because when you parry, and like an unsuccessful parry will usually block as well. Like you'll lose ki, but you won't take. It's not as devastating as a missed parry is in a Souls game.
Yeah,
if you totally do it wrong, you really screw it up, you will actually turn your back to an enemy. And
Jesus!
That's no good.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Yeah. Like Souls has always had partial parries, is what they're called, where you miss the actual parry but you don't take damage. But they're pretty rare.
Yeah.
Like I think most people just think of them as a glitch, but like Souls have always had partial parries. This it's like it defaults to partial parry. It like rounds up in favor of the player.
Yeah.
When you're parrying, so it makes the actual like experience of learning to parry much like lower risk and much more fun.
Yeah.
And you don't drop the block button to parry. You press another button while blocking.
Yeah.
Yep. Which I really appreciate.
Which feels great.
There are a lot of different, they're kind of like broad weapon categories, but within those categories, there are a lot of different weapons. Yeah. And those broad weapon categories, I think there are 6.
It's like 6 or 7, something like that.
Yeah, 6 or 7.
Including the DLC weapon or not including the DLC weapon?
I was thinking not including it because I don't, I haven't played the DLC.
No.
Okay.
But,
it's a great sword.
Oh, there we go.
Essentially.
There are also bows and guns and cannons as well, and ranged combat turns out to be much more important than I initially thought it was.
Yeah, it's also really convenient. Like you can just pull a shoulder button and then bring out your ranged weapon.
Yeah. It reminds me of the function with how they changed knives in Resident Evil 4.
Oh yeah,
it's kind of how range weapons work in this, and it's really fast and good.
Yeah, it's a really apt comparison, and like you absolutely, if you can see an enemy like waiting for you, it is totally a benefit to level your gun or your bow and take them out, because a headshot will crit them and often take them out of the the upcoming encounter.
I did that a lot.
Even Oni, even the yokai.
Yep.
Usually you'll stun them and knock them to the ground and take away all their ki if you do that.
And if you if you're not, if you're close enough, you can actually just like run up and then do a down attack on him, and mostly trivialize him as part of the next encounter. It's really good.
The ranged ninja, can't speak. The ranged ninjutsu and magic is also.
Yeah. We'll definitely talk about magic when we get there, which is something that I think is another thing this game does pretty well.
Yeah. Yep. But each weapon is governed by a different stat. So you kind of have to make your choices about how you're going to level up based on which weapons you enjoy using. So like, every single level up is a decision that you're making.
Yeah.
What I like about this is you have no resistance stat. Every stat is actually useful.
Yeah. There's no dumb stat. Yeah.
No dumps, and you're definitely making a build, and hybrid builds are encouraged. So you can be like specialize in a weapon, but also use magic or also use ninjutsu, or emphasize your guardian spirit, which we'll talk about a little bit. Like there are stats that they're all useful. They all kind of suggest towards a build. One of the biggest things with the combat here is stances. So each weapon has 3 different stances: high, medium, and low. And knowing kind of when to use these and being able to switch on the fly is super useful. I didn't engage with this as that often. And I want to throw this out there that this is not like, oh, this game was hard and I quit, and then I'm going to say I didn't engage with this system, and then people are going to say, oh, you didn't engage with the system. No wonder it was hard. Like medium stance spear got me through 90% of everything. Is a rock that unlocks almost every window. So I really, really rarely need to do anything different than that. And I don't know if that's like a flaw or what that is. Like I could have like been flashier and switched, but I just didn't have to.
It's a good weapon.
Yeah. It's like spear is really, really good. Like having that that range advantage makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And it's got a good area of effect sweeping attacks too.
Yeah, and the parry is really good. Like the parry on the spear is, I don't know if it has a wider window or not, but I was very successful parrying with it as well.
Yeah.
So
I primarily did swords, and I switched stances an awful lot. And like often like in the phase of the battle, like starting out with a high stance, knowing that I would have an advantage on it, and then switching to low to dodge, and then back to middle when I was going to be more kind of engaged. Like it was less about which enemy required which attacks, but more like what situation. And even if I didn't need to, it was more like fidgeting, because I just liked that system and wanted to really go whole hog with it.
And it relates to key pulse when we get to that. But all of the weapons will have a switching the stance along with a key pulse will bring back a ton of ki.
Yep.
So if you are doing the stance, you never run out.
Yeah. And I just did that with dodging.
Stamina.
Yeah.
I don't know if we actually said that. Ki is stamina.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this also affects like which like what area you're going to be able to hit. So there are going to be enemies who will start out standing up, but then they will revert to crawling once you hit them a couple of times, and it benefits you to switch to a lower stance so that your attacks do not like go over their heads.
Yeah. Yeah. So high stance is low speed, high power, low defense for yourself, but high attack power. Low stance gives you lower attack power, but higher speed and higher defense. And then middle is like your Mario, is your all arounder.
Sort of. Low makes you dodge really well.
Yeah.
Mid makes you block really well.
Makes you what really well? I'm sorry?
Block.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I made a mistake when I
high
wrote that.
is really good for the yokai,
Mhm.
because if you strike their horns, it'll get rid of all of their ki.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that tied in with stamina.
Yeah, I used a bow for that. Like I always hit their horns and took out their horns with a ranged attack generally.
Also effective.
Yeah.
So along with the combat here, like this doesn't really fit in with the stance side of this, but enemies can just be out in the world, or they can rise up from this black and white fog called the yokai realm. And we're going to talk about that because that plays very much with the key, the key mechanic.
Yeah. So as we mentioned, stamina is key, and you really don't want to run out. It's not like in Souls.
Yeah,
where you can be down to 0 and it just means you can't dodge.
Yeah, you have to walk away for a couple of seconds to get just the minimum amount of stamina required to roll. No, you will do like I do after I run a quarter of a mile, which is put my hands on my knees and breathe heavily.
Yeah, you turn useless.
Yeah,
and this is true of enemies as well, which is really fantastic. The fact that every enemy kind of deals with the same mechanic that you do, and you can see it as a meter.
Yeah.
So when your attacks are draining an enemy's ki, when they're very low, and you might want to press the attack to put them in this vulnerable state where they're like, okay, take a knee, coach, or take it to walk it off. You want to get them in that as well.
And that is so great. I love being able to see the enemy stamina.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it affects your decision. Yeah.
And it implies the enemies have stamina, which is another thing that I wish Dark Souls 3 had.
Yeah.
Where they just don't. And it's just an unlimited meter. Like this does feel the enemies are governed by the same rules, which is something that I missed from, Dark Souls 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So this key is if you're near one of these yokai realms that one of the yokai come from, these black and white kind of foggy patches that look really neat.
Yeah.
Then it will be drained. And enemies that stand in this, it will increase their ki.
Specifically, yokai enemies. Like regular dudes will not. But like if you come across an oni, they will very much try to stand in this area and create new ones in order to press their advantage.
It regenerates their ki and slows your ki regeneration.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like bosses all kind of do something with this. Like the bosses will create these areas. It's kind of this form of mild area denial. That they do that you have to engage with, because you can get rid of these realms by doing this ki pulse. And a ki pulse is something after you swing your weapon, you will see this kind of glowing energy kind of concentric around your character. And when it reaches its apex, you hit a button and that ki pulses.
Yeah.
And this will kind of increase your ki. You'll get back most of the stamina you lost for that attack, and you will dispel any yokai realms near you. Yeah. And you can eventually tie this to a bunch of different actions. You can make this happen when you dodge. You can make this happen when you switch stances.
Yeah.
This goes back to what you were saying about pairing, though, that there is a perfect ki pulse, and then there's the not perfect, and I do perfect like 1 out of 5 times.
But still, it's worth trying. And, so confirm this for me, Mai, if you can. Different weapons or different weapon types have different windows for when the key will gather, and the optimal time to hit that button, right?
As far as I can tell. Also, stance seems to affect it.
Yeah. And so, like, figuring out what the actual window on that is really feels good. I love this system so much. This is great because it's another thing to add on to the rhythm. Like, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but it feels a little bit like adding the kick drum to regular drums in Rock Band. Yeah, like it's just something else to keep track of, and really, really fun when you actually hit it. In that, like, it does, I'll be a hypocrite here. It does, reward this kind of sustained perfection with the ability to press further and press harder.
Yeah, it's really good. Like it is a really, really fantastic system. I think that the the problems I have with this game almost entirely deal with what I'm facing, not with what I'm doing. Like what I'm doing is fun and cool.
Yeah.
For the most part. So like this once you learn this, it's really, really satisfying. And even kind of getting that weapon. So even though I mostly used, like I switch stance from time to time, but I exclusively used the spear when I played. Even mastering that and getting the range and everything is really satisfying. And it's probably the most fun part of the game for me. Like feeling like, I'm very good with this weapon, and can kind of do really cool things with it is satisfying. You know, and like I give that a big ups. You know.
Yeah.
And I don't think it needs to continue, but at least at first it does that thing I've heard you say you like a lot, Gary, of because the bosses are dropping constant yokai realms, they're kind of teaching you need to be key pulsing.
Yeah.
Of course, then it continues in every boss fight and kind of loses that.
Yeah.
Well, and just in regular enemies is the big thing. Like the bosses, I would have liked to have, if I could have, when I quit this game, if I could have just continued the rest of it as a boss rush, I probably would have tried it.
Yeah.
It's just fighting the same guys 10,000 times is what killed it for me.
Yeah.
And the level design and the story, but the like as far as like killing my desire to move forward, you know.
Yeah.
But the bosses like at least have a new twist on stuff. Like that's where they hit their variety.
Yeah.
Just give it all the sugar.
Yeah, it's the
it's a.
I mean, I don't think those things are good. I can't lie about it. Like I think those things are pretty bad.
It's too specific kind of drives, right? Like, yes, this feels amazing in your hands. I think Dark Souls 3 also feels very good in the hands. But the counteracting drive in Nioh that isn't satisfied is the desire for novelty, which outside of the bosses isn't really stimulated, right?
Yeah, is not. It's very similar. A closer comparison than Dark Souls 3 would be Chalice Dungeons.
Oh yeah,
where the people who I know who like Chalice Dungeons, they just care about engaging with more Bloodborne. They don't give a shit about any other part.
Yeah,
I like Chalice Dungeons.
Yes.
I feel like this is Chalice Dungeons done right.
Okay,
this is better than Chalice Dungeons.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But it's similar in that like. All I care about is moving my little Bloodborne guy around.
Yeah.
Like if I'm controlling William with this moveset, it doesn't matter what I'm doing.
Right.
I just think it's fun to move him around. And that's not enough for me where I don't care about what's over the next hill. You know, like that even in Dark Souls 3, which like is very satisfying in my hands, like at least I got to go to a new zone with like cool, creepy storytelling and like new design monsters and shit.
Yeah.
This just doesn't do that. Like it's not interested in that. And that ended up being ultimately the thing that like killed the momentum.
Yeah.
So I started that as a way of giving this a backhand, a compliment, which is that like the actual controlling my dude is very good.
So these systems are pretty fiddly, and it takes a while to, kind of get on top of them and really, use them to your advantage. Something the game gives you right away, which is very strange for a Souls game, is kind of a limit break.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. These guardian spirits.
Yeah.
That you have. So after you, when you do character creation in the dojo after your first mission, you pick a guardian spirit, and these are ghost animals. They kind of hang around near you. They give you these kind of static buffs to your stats and everything, and then you get these limit break attacks once you fill up this meter.
If your spirit is up, and it lists what the requirements are, but I wasn't a heavy spirit user.
Okay.
So I didn't usually have the benefits of my guardian spirit other than the living weapon.
Yeah, and like that was specifically if your spirit's up, you get more kind of advantage from the static benefits. If that's correct. Yeah.
So there are builds for it. Like I watch people online, and like you can really emphasize this if you want to. You get this thing called living weapon, which is your guardian spirit kind of forges with you. Merges with you. That's the word. I was going to say muses. Kind of merges with you and kind of combines you. So instead of having a life meter and a key meter, you kind of have one big omni meter that functions as a time limit, a stamina meter, and your life.
Yeah.
It goes down instead of your life. It goes down when you do attacks. It kind of goes down on its own, and you do tons of damage, and you don't take health damage during this.
Yeah. So
but if you do avoid the enemy attacks, you can do the difference between taking off 10% of its life to taking off a quarter or a third of its life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about bosses.
Yeah, this is incredibly useful for bosses. A great deal of the guides that you're going to see for bosses, because I'm a weak beta boy. He will say like, hey, use your living weapon. It only recharges on kills. So what this would end up being is, instead of just making a boss run, my boss run would involve, okay, well, I have to call my guardian back, which we can talk about with the shrines or whatever. Well, I guess we can say that there. If you die with your guardian spirit, it will be at your soul pile. At your grave. You have to go and get it back. So like, okay, I need to get my guardian spirit back, and then I need to go kill enough things to get my living weapon back for this attempt, because it is a huge advantage. And it felt just a smidge grindy to me, which makes sense because, like I said, it is a huge advantage, but it does kind of mess with the incentives for things like boss runs.
Yeah.
I think it's hits and kills do more.
Okay.
Because most of the boss runs I would do, I wouldn't kill anything on the way back to it.
Okay.
And yet, I would be able to use my living weapon multiple times in one of my attempts where I would die a lot.
Yeah, and I'm positive that there is some kind of stat or build or weapon perk that I could have used that I didn't, that would have sped that up or would have made recharging a living weapon within a boss fight possible or more likely for me.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Systems on systems.
Yeah.
Yeah. I generally used it to finish off bosses.
Yeah,
like if I
yeah.
got them down to that last like 15-10%, I would be like, okay, I don't want to risk anything, and I would just use it. But it didn't. I didn't emphasize it.
No.
Either. So it is very, very useful though, and like, it's a cool idea.
Yeah. And within a level, like you can use this to dust up some of those enemies that won't respawn. So those kind of act like mid bosses.
In addition, it has an ultimate attack. That will
Yes.
empty whatever remaining bar you have on your living weapon and do something depending on what spirit you're using.
Yeah.
I never used the ultimate attack. I just kind of hammered away the attack generally, and it was adequate for our purposes.
I forgot that there was an ultimate attack.
I always used it right before the bar was completely up.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. You could be forgiven for forgetting because it tells you this, but again, I feel like we're probably like 30% through the systems of Nioh at this point in the episode. Like we have a lot more. Like this game is that's all the systems on systems on systems. So you have to remember a lot of things.
Yeah. And it presents it gives you a lot of information in that first dojo mission, and it kind of expects you to go back and do more of them.
And I hated going to the dojo. Like
Yeah.
I thought it was super boring. So like I would do it when I wanted to unlock new ninja magic and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wanted to be able to use magic, so I went and did the dojo mission. But I thought they were really boring.
Yeah.
So
They're boring, but they're quick, pretty painless, and the rewards are well worth.
Yeah.
the rewards are really good. They are quick. I just wanted if with my like what I wanted to see was more cool new stuff. Like taking a 5-minute break to go look at the dojo again was really not appealing.
Weirdly,
You
some
know
of
what
the
also sucks?
go ahead.
40 hours into the game, and they're like, go do a tutorial mission.
That's 100% true. And some of the things, it's just them kind of doling out the it reminds me a little bit of Let It Die, where like they're doling out these mechanics that I wish were either maybe presented in a way that was less fiddly so they could be presented from the beginning, because like hiding magic and ninjutsu didn't feel having that be something you unlock 15% through the game didn't feel like it added a whole lot to me. I think they only did that because otherwise you'd be so overwhelmed with things. And it's like, well, maybe if you didn't have this like loot system and this like these other fiddly systems, you could have these base verbs available from the start.
I was also pretty overwhelmed regardless of what they did.
And no one is going to blame you, but you actually can start putting ninja and magic in like right away.
Yeah.
If you read the menus, but I mean, there's so many systems. I understand.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess I should clarify. You're right about that, but there are ones. There are magics that you don't get to unlock until you do certain tutorials.
Yeah.
Right.
Same with weapon skills.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah. So there'd be things where I could get like the real basic. I think I got the super basic like water debuff. And then, but I was working towards, because my friend Will, who reviewed this for the EV Club, who loaned me the copy of it, was playing it, and he's just like, yeah, when you get to bosses that you really hate, use the slow spell because it breaks the game. And I was like, great, I want to break the game. So I was trying to work towards getting that. I never ended up actually getting it because I never got whatever unlocked it. It would give you the name of a mission. It's like, this is unlocked after a Phantom of the Twilight or something. And I'm like, what the fuck's a Phantom of the Twilight? Like, I don't. Where do I find that? What is it? I didn't know what I had to do to actually unlock the thing.
Yeah.
But there were other magics I couldn't get.
Yeah, I found more useful the one that reduces an enemy's ki, kind of like slow, but it does it to their ki.
Nice.
And the duels were kind of the hardest thing for me, but most of those duels become much easier when the person's constantly running out of ki because you're hitting them with a magic.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Weirdly, those dojos were some of the places where I saw enemies from further on in the game. So similar to that, and also some of the side missions, like doing one of the side missions in the first kind of undead village area was where I saw the spinning wheel.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And then doing the mission to get the slow spell, because I got similar advice from Mai, was where I saw these jumping umbrella enemies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which were fun and goofy.
Yeah, I don't like the wheel, but the umbrella guys are fine. So moving on to different currencies and stats and such here.
Yeah.
So moving the little slider went to 37% on systems. So you have your different stats, as you mentioned. Amrita is traded to boost your stats, similar to Souls, kind of leveling up. These affect these attributes like damage, health, and govern your ability with these different weapon types you have.
Yeah. And it also like affects the amount to which you gain familiarity with weapons, which we'll talk about.
Yes.
It's super cool to actually not just have that be to not have a stat just govern the way William changes, but actually to make your weapons work better. Keeping those two things in mind actually kind of worked for me. Yeah.
I mean, it's fine.
Yep. You have different skill trees you can bring up, like we've talked about. So Samurai, Ninja, and Onmyo. Samurai does it's like your combat weapon abilities, melee, or sometimes does Samurai work with ranged as well, or is that just Ninja?
I'm pretty sure it's just Ninja.
Yeah.
Your Samurai thing is just it's like 6 different slots for the 6 different weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it depends. There aren't really ranged skills other than the magic and ninjutsu.
Yeah.
Ninja gives you kind of consumable damage causing weapons like shuriken or poison. Things like
and
that.
some of those are boost as well. I think there's some buffs
as
well in there.
Yeah. And then Onmyo is your magic. Like you create these different talisman that you can use to buff, or actually just use like a soul missile, except with different elements and such.
And something most players will probably miss, I wouldn't blame them, is your backstab exists in the ninjutsu tree.
Oh, really?
Oh, I had no idea.
Huh.
That's where backstab lives.
Okay. I just thought that wasn't there. Thank you.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
So a bunch of the things that I think that are, to my mind, are like should be kind of baked out of the box, are things you have to put points into, which kind of goes back into what we were talking about. Let It Die. So some of the things under the Samurai umbrella, you have to put points into, such as like kicking, grappling, parrying, doing a key blast on your dodge or a key blast on your stance change, are all things you have to put skill points into.
Yeah.
Which we didn't really mention this, but it is different than your stat points.
Yes.
Skill points are you find them either as consumable items, or you get them on. Do you get them just kind of on level up, or is it all consumable items? Where do you get skill points from in this?
Skill points are actually, it's a little bit like Final Fantasy II or Oblivion, where like by fighting you will gain samurai skills, and by using ninja-like weapons you get ninja, and then Onmyo, by using the basic stuff that you get that there. So like you use the muscle and then it gets stronger.
And also,
and any stat, raising any stat will give you 2 skill points of the appropriate related.
Ah, cool.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So I thought I knew there was a stat connection. So there's 3 different ways: stats, using the thing, and then finding consumables.
Yeah,
is how you're going to find these skills. Yeah. So a bunch of these skills, I wish that they were just kind of part of the game.
Yeah.
And and consequently, wish the things I was putting points into were kind of cooler than they were. Like I kept feeling like I was getting back to normal, like getting back to base.
Yeah.
With these,
specifically like the kick in order to manage crowds, or the grapple. Like grappling isn't like D&D 3.0 or whatever. Grappling is like when an enemy is downed or staggered, like it is a super high powered attack that you can execute with your strong weapon or with your strong attack, which is great because it gives you some immunity and it takes down the health a great deal. Like you want to have that in your arsenal.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
There's
then obviously
also a bunch of barehanded stuff, especially in the ninjutsu tree.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess there's probably people out there that do a barehanded build, but I couldn't imagine.
it's a cool idea.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
wonder. I imagine if you had that maxed out, it would look pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I haven't sought it out or anything.
Yeah.
And then as we mentioned, some of those skills are only available to put points into once you've done certain dojo training missions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then prestige, so subsystem B of
And there's requirements.
yes. Oh yeah. That's
For some of the dojo missions, you'll have to have, for say, gotten at least 10,000 proficiency points with weapons.
Yeah,
Or something like that.
Or like have 10 spirit in order to do a certain Onmyo mission to get a certain talisman that will let you beat more bosses than you otherwise should.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
So subsystem B of like subparagraph 4, prestige. So prestige points are this kind of way the game works in-game achievements. So if you do certain things that are kind of achievement worded, you get prestige points. Prestige points, it's kind of like this. It's not like a slot machine, but it presents 3 different options, and whichever one you choose kind of gets wiped out. And these are very, very minor advantages.
Yeah.
That
you
build
choose,
up and become incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
for
they're
sure.
stacked.
Like it definitely like it will stack up. I again, like mileage may vary. I hated this like so much because it's so like just another menu I have to check to like, and I've got so many of these ways to incrementally improve my character, so getting these little perks, like it felt a lot like, it's very related to like the Dragon Age versus Baldur's Gate, like weapon progression thing that I talk about a lot, where like in Dragon Age, it's like, 0.23 fire damage on crits. Great. Whereas something like Baldur's Gate where it's like, this does, 2 extra damage and pushes somebody back. And it has like a real concrete noticeable effect.
Yeah.
Like a meaningful change. Like none of these changes felt meaningful. They perhaps got meaningful in aggregate, but it just became another thing I had to fiddle with, like the menu, like the blacksmith, like the weapons kind of forging and everything that could slowly incrementally kept me on this curve.
Yeah.
Like nothing ever felt like, man, I did this and now I feel noticeably cooler.
Yeah.
Everything other than those skills that just got me kind of basic, to base level, just always felt like it kept me at the midpoint of the wave,
Yeah. It's like erosion.
Yeah, like reverse erosion, like a calcium, like I'm building a stalactite.
I get it, but for me it was kind of like you get a mocha and they're like, you want whipped cream? And I'm like, oh yeah.
Yes.
You want some cinnamon? Oh, okay. Because you just go in there and if there's options, you take them, and otherwise you don't worry about it.
Yeah, I weirdly treated this like credit card rewards. Like, okay, well, I don't make decisions based on this, but occasionally I'm able to buy a game on Amazon.
Like it's like frequent flyer miles.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like I can taste cinnamon. It's
now we've proven we're old.
Like it was more like instead of like cinnamon, which like I can taste in a latte, it was more like when you go and you get a smoothie and they're like, would you like us to put half a teaspoon of protein powder into it? Or something like that. It's like, well, like I get that that's good for me. I'm not going to taste it and I'm not going to be stronger after I have that, It's
Yeah, but by end game build, I mean, I'm getting like plus 25% up on things and stuff like that. So
for sure,
it ends up accruing.
Yeah, by the end of the game, it is a meaningful thing. It's just so so gradual getting there. Yeah. And I don't think the game tells you about this. I just stumbled across the menu because I saw it as a menu item and tried it. Yeah. I was like, what does this mean? And like checked it out. But I don't remember the game ever telling me this was a thing.
Yeah, it's a menu that it's a menu.
There's a moment where they tell you.
Yeah, it's like in the Demon Village or whatever, but like it'll be a menu that you open up and it'll give a tooltip saying, "Hey, as you fulfill these requirements, you'll get these points."
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I prefer it to a regular achievement system because at least you're getting something, right? So it's not just like I get to brag to my friends that I killed 10 yokai with headshots, right? Like it's at least a not meaningful upgrade, like, but it's at least an in-game upgrade.
Yeah, it's endemic to the game as opposed to part of the platform.
Yeah, so I appreciate that.
I think if someone's been maxing for it, it encourages you to do variety so that you're hitting more of those kind of achievements.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yep. So yeah, somebody who would like specifically be looking for different ways to play this game. I could see that also being a thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about gear.
Let's do, because this is huge. Because you are going to find a ton of gear, and you're going to churn through gear like crazy. Again, similar to Let It Die. Both of these have it's satisfying to talk about these in a pair, because most of this gear that you're going to get has randomized stats and abilities. So this is where the Diablo style comparison comes through. Something notable,
including set bonuses.
including what? I'm sorry.
Set bonuses.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Set
bonuses.
set.
So yeah, if you wear a matching outfit.
Okay. Yeah. I can dig that. But something they took out of the betas was durability. So you're not going to be kind of burning through equipment like you would in Let It Die.
Yeah.
Weapons still have it.
Oh, weird. I never noticed that.
If you're changing weapons so often.
No, true. There we go.
Yeah. So it may as well not have it.
I noticed because I kept powering up a weapon.
Yeah.
I would use the inheritance and stuff.
So this is going to take a lot of kind of you're going to spend a lot of time doing this. Kind of managing this, and like the so I didn't care for this a whole lot. I know people who really like fiddling with it, you know, as a thing. For me, it just became, again, kind of a fiddliness that I was not interested in. So and a lot of times, like just kind of in menus there, like something about the menu system in this game, like whenever I was looking at a menu, I was like, make this end, like probably because the combat stuff was good. I wanted to get back to the fun action game I was playing. So one of the things you're looking at when you're doing this is equipment weight that you have, because this is going to affect your movement speed and kind of more importantly, your key usage and kind of recovery rate. So you can kind of do similar to Souls, where you have a light, medium, and heavy build. It's more granular than that, but you still have to be cognizant of it in the same way.
I love the way they teach you about the equipment weight, or at least show it most strongly. So something we didn't talk about, but like when you find certain weapon caches or certain pickups, there will be kind of audio logs associated with them. Most of these end up being like, oh, the threat is so bad, this person who died woke up and they were a monster. Like, it just repeat that ad nauseum. There was one in the first real area in Japan, the demon village. That's like, oh, the equipment is so heavy I can't move. Why did I do this? And it is this incredibly high stat gold Nioh armor that you can, like, if you fall for the trap and put it on, your character is not ready to have something that heavy on, and then you immediately demonstrate to yourself through mechanics what that character went through. I think that's actually kind of cool.
I wore the helmet and gloves. It was so fun.
Yeah, like you can pepper it in, but like if you're like, oh, I'm going to be a fucking tank now, no, actually, like the system cuts the other way too.
Yeah, for sure. You gain the stat called familiarity with items, and it's not classifications of weapons; it's actual individual weapons. Yeah. So with this one soldier's spear, I've gained familiarity with it. They have kind of limits to this. This is like a 50 of 200. It increases as it kind of goes up. You get different kind of stats and abilities for them, and at a certain point, you reach a ceiling. And that is when you're encouraged to switch to a new weapon and kind of grandfather in the best parts of your old weapon into the new weapon that you have.
It does increase the ability, the damage of the particular weapon. You have it maxed out, and it becomes much more powerful.
Yeah. So you want to keep it maxed out, but you also eventually will stop getting more powerful with it.
Yeah.
Like you can get more powerful through stats and everything, but you will find you'll find better weapons. So you just start that kind of small loop again of gaining that familiarity with this, like, oh, this is a commander's spear, Yeah. Yeah.
You also gain more Emerita if you sacrifice a weapon that has high familiarity, and that is a system we're going to talk about later. Also, somebody might write in or tweet at us about this. This is also tied into, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mai, but certain beliefs of Shintoism, where even inanimate objects have a spirit of them, and the bond between a person and that object will grow, and that spirit will go stronger by that interaction, right? So, like, this is justified in. It feels super insulting to say this, but the mythology. Right?
No, it's correct. I mean, that's the whole concept behind these heirloom swords and weapons and families. Is that
Yeah.
the family spirits and ancestors watch over that weapon because of the familiarity they built up from using it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're fine on that. You're not offensive. It's okay.
Yeah.
So weapons have different kind of effective levels. So there's a shorthand to see kind of how powerful it is. Even if they have the same names, you can have a higher level soldier spear than a lower level one. And that doesn't look at familiarity, which governs so much of how powerful a weapon will be.
Yeah.
That kind of like grandfathering in, reducing, kind of sluicing your weapons into new weapons we'll talk about in the blacksmith section in subsection 48.7 of systems of this game. But for now, just like if you're just picking up things to use, this is how it works.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we are going to get to the blacksmith, but just to give people my 2 cents to why inventory management wasn't a big deal for me.
Mm-hmm.
You pick something up, there's a symbol, you'll learn it when you get to the blacksmith, of whether it has an ability that can be passed on to another weapon. That can be passed on if you have max familiarity. So if it does, you press the square button. That locks it so that when you go to sell, it won't get sold. If it doesn't, don't press the square button.
Oh, well.
Just glance real quick. Anything that has that symbol, bam, hit it. And then if it ends up being where you end up going through several stages and you never get around to maxing out its familiarity, who cares? Press square, lose it. And that way, when you go to the blacksmith, all you do is you say, disassemble all or sell all. And anything you hit square on won't get sold.
Oh,
and
dang.
That's all you have to worry about.
Yeah, so you just go through and like bookmark certain items.
Yeah, it doesn't take long, but you're not. I don't blame you for hating doing it.
It doesn't take a whole lot. It reminds me, it's real similar to a lot of the systems in this game, though, where like there's a way to get around the odious part, and then I have to ask, like, what is this adding? So this kind of like fiddling with it, like, so this is actually like there's some, like I didn't change stances a lot. I fully engaged with this by the time I quit the game. Like I was doing this, I had my weapon, I was doing what you're talking about. Like I would go through all the weapons, hit square, lock them, sell everything else, that I didn't want. Was going through and giving these like new traits or new kind of special perks to my weapons. It was still it still had that Dragon Age problem where those perks like tended to be, plus 2% gold when fighting yokai. They were like non-meaningful, not fun perks that might be great in aggregate over the course of a game, but individually didn't feel worth my time to do. Like just didn't feel cool.
Yeah. What you're looking for is the small numbers RPG equivalent of this.
Yes. Yeah. Like again, not to, the comparison has to be made where it's like in Dark Souls, when I infuse a weapon with an elemental type, it's simpler. It's like less fiddly than this, but it's just like, oh, this makes a difference that I can immediately see and feels different and like works. Yeah. Or like if I increase this weapon from +2 to +3, that's some extra damage and I get it. Yeah. And it feels meaningful and good, and these little things that eventually I could come up with ways to manage my annoyance with them never got into the positive. Yeah. It just got closer to even. Yeah.
The other comparison that should be made, especially if somebody is coming to this with a Souls-like mindset, is that in Dark Souls, each individual weapon has the potential to have a different moveset. Kind of attached to it, right? So it will actually articulate, spatially in the world quite differently, whereas movesets are pretty much tied to both your stances and to, the weapon type or the category that it fits into. So like if you have chosen a lane, there's not going to be a tremendous amount of variance unless there is, stuff that is added in further on down the line that is endemic to the weapons that you pick up and not just a new skill that you get. Like it is it is a different kind of thing, that a different visual or mechanical reward that you get by picking something up.
It is you can pick up something for a chance that you might be able to add a trait of it to your current weapon, or it might have a higher ceiling if you do this kind of homework and make this your new thing to build up the familiarity. Like you get chances at incremental change. Yeah. So in aggregate, like I think it does make a difference. Like, but on an individual level, when I'm making the choices, it didn't feel meaningful and good like it does in like a small numbers RPG or Souls or like Final Fantasy Tactics or Baldur's Gate or one of these games where I'm making role-playing game decisions that feel like they have a big impact on my character and moveset.
Yeah, it was kind of like, what if we made the Bloodborne prog bars?
Yeah.
You go out of your way, and it's like, oh, another Chalice Dungeon material.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like Blood Gems have kind of a similar problem.
Oh, very similar to Blood Gems. Like the idea of like this, when you go through chalices and be like, oh, this version of this weapon has a different Blood Gem configuration.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is impossible for me to get excited about that.
Yeah.
And that kind of feeling cool or feeling like good about my avatar getting more powerful is a big part of the reason why I want to engage with RPG systems. So if this didn't have those, if it was just a character action game where I had all of these kind of things unlocked from the front, I think it would be, to my mind, and like I'm not speaking for anybody else because this game was very successful, but to my mind it would be stronger because those things were detrimental.
Yeah.
Like having to spend that time in the menus, having to kind of learn these systems for what felt like a really, really minor reward interfered with my enjoyment of the game. It didn't increase it, Yeah. So, and like at least that's where I was at with these things. I also really like the idea of like having a weapon and being like, this is my weapon. That familiarity system is very cool, but it's so undercut by this constant churn. It's a weird thing where you have a stat called familiarity that's really worth engaging with, but you kind of you're going to just find better new stuff that you're going to give up. Old Stabby is going to get thrown in the corner and eaten up somehow. Like, it just felt inevitable.
Yeah.
Before we move off familiarity, there's just another little side benefit. You probably noticed when you first go to a new shrine that you get some Amrita right away.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's based on the familiarity of the equipment you're wearing.
Oh, shit. Okay. Wow. Okay.
Huh.
Yeah, and that can be huge, actually. Like, that was...
Just so we don't get,
Yeah, so no, thank you. I appreciate you watching my Twitter feed.
Yeah. No, but, like, that can be huge. Like, that is sometimes the difference between being able to level up or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, big thumbs up for that. Thank you for letting me know that is what that was attached to, because I was very baffled when it didn't happen. I came to expect it. I was accustomed.
Yeah.
You should always get some the first time you find one.
Yeah.
It'll increase.
Yeah. Along with gear, your consumables are incredibly important, so like try not to forget them. We kind of always say that. Like we said that about Bloodborne, we said that about Dark Souls 3. I think that it is just a thing about these games that I fall into complacency trying to hoard things. But here, like most of your skills, or 2/3 of the skill trees that you can access, are about creating these consumable items, and you want to be able to be comfortable with divesting yourself of them.
Yeah, and there's a wide array.
Yeah, the ninjutsu and Onyo, they restore like Estus spots.
Yeah.
So they create a consumable, but it restores every time. But the other ones, no, absolutely not. And what helped me a lot on that is that you can't access your storehouse, which is like the Bloodborne storage box or Dark Souls storage box.
Yep.
You can't access it in a mission. So it kind of became, this is the max I can use in this mission anyway. And it kind of motivated me to use them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also, stones. Like, I really relied on stones, especially when I was out of arrows.
And draw aggro.
Yeah, in order to do that. Like, for some reason, that worked for me very well. So you can deal with this glut in one way at these shrines, this glut of these items, by sacrificing your unwanted gear at the shrines for Amrita. And occasionally as you do this, I have no idea what this is tied to, but you get a consumable item. So this was one of my primary sources of like extra elixirs.
Yeah. Yeah. And that definitely helps with the, I still got to the point where elixirs got kind of scarce for me. But this helps with that for sure. Like if you're constantly churning your old equipment, you'll get a lot of elixirs, which is great. And so that kind of a little bit ameliorates the Kodama reset thing of just having, being reset to the 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
So the blacksmith, moving on to the second to last section on systems.
You're making that sound like a failing of me making the notes as opposed to the game for having them.
I 100% want it to be a failing on Nioh's part. Like I'm never going to take an opportunity to cast shade at you, Cole, one of my best friends, when I can cast shade at this game. So
I did warn you we could spend 10 hours on systems.
Oh, you certainly did. Unfortunately, we spent just shy of 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, it is real dense. So the blacksmith, once you get access to this, Senji Tomei's blacksmith shop from the region map, where eventually you can head to this. This acts as a store, so you can buy. I don't know why you'd ever buy weapons here. It feels like the weapons I was finding were always better, but this is where I bought arrows and bullets and stuff. You can break items down to their core components because there's a crafting system. Yeah. Where you can forge kind of new gear. Because this game needs another way to be able to make gear. When every enemy is literally a pinata of trash.
Trash that you can turn into materials to make divine weapons.
Which you can then make endgame stuff. Yeah. It's like they were playing like Disgaea or something. Like it's man. I never did any actual crafting. The thing I did do was soul matching, which is where you if you find a new lower level of a weapon that has better base stats, you can feed your high level weapon into it to kind of increase its level up to the high level.
Yeah.
And this has a way of grandfathering in kind of those special traits and perks.
With the inheritance, it's not weapon specific.
Oh, yeah.
So you have an ability that's on a spear that you really like. You're like, I want that on my sword. You can do that. You
can also do it with armor and stuff, too, which I forgot. But, and those are a little bit more meaningful than the weapons ones because, like, the, plus 10% gold drops only from the specific enemy never got me excited. But, like, the armor one, the ones that are, like, movement speed. Yeah. And stuff like things I felt that like could be actually useful.
Yeah. Like you could, and something that I did because I was really, not annoyed by it, but like I noticed a drag on my abilities because of yokai realms. Like that is a special ability that is tied to some gear that you can maximize and bring down is the ability to ameliorate that.
Yeah.
Also a prestige ability.
Yeah. Prestige is another currency which you'll have to talk to us about, because we don't, or another currency because I didn't really, there was a prestige ability. I was thinking of honor or glory.
Glory.
Yeah. Glory. There's prestige and glory.
We should probably hit off glory before we finish system, just to get it out of the way. Yeah. Don't unlock it until you get the tea house.
Yeah, we'll do that once we get to before multiplayer.
Yeah, that'll be a multiplayer.
This game, this thesaurus, what shaped like a game that we're dealing with. Oh, do you mean it was honor? No, glory. Prestige? Oh, no. It was stick-to-itiveness.
Gumption.
Yeah, gumption.
See, that's the thing. I didn't engage with the gumption mechanic.
You didn't do the gumption system. Oh. Yeah, no wonder. So
that's the whole secret.
The secret was Elmo Grease.
My team playerness is through the roof. I get a plus 2-3% thrust damage from side attacks. So you can also reforge weapons to kind of get rid of a weapon effect on a weapon and get new ones, and you can lock these in similar to how you deal with the inventory in general.
Yeah.
This gives you a random one, and the more you do this, the more it costs.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a dice roll. You might get something cool, you might not, and you kind of keep rolling the dice until you get something good, which also feels Diablo-y, it's like the Diablo Gambler.
And you can't save stuff.
No.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure there's some way to do so, uploading your save to the, I'm sure you can, but
back up,
yeah. It's definitely something where also this is its own currency as well. It's like spirit metal or spirit steel.
Oh my god, like bringing the currency count in this game up to 5, I think.
You're gonna have to cover Marvel Heroes eventually.
Oh Jesus! We talked about Let It Die. Like again, these are very strangely paired in lots of ways. You can also refashion items. Like if you like the way a particular piece of armor or a particular weapon looks, you can say, I want it to look like that, and then just have different stats on something that looks different. So
it's cheap, and I loved the fashion souls.
Oh yeah,
I always looked like however I wanted to look,
which is perfect, right? Especially when each individual item is so so barely different than the other. You could end up like if you're trying to maximize this, looking like a goddamn clown. But if you just engage with this, you can look however you want, which is important to a lot of people. Same thing with the haircut option. Like you can get your haircut at the blacksmith.
I do not remember when the haircut unlocked. Maybe you guys do.
I didn't.
I know it was locked for a long time.
It's like it's hidden by dialogue, I think, with Tomei, but
could be.
Yeah. So there is. I mean, there are people. The fashion stuff in this was not something that generally like drew me a whole bunch, but it's cool that they recognize it. You know.
Yeah.
Like that is an additional system that doesn't bug me. Like, let me customize my look because I get that that's a big thing.
Something that's worth saying about that, like the designs on some of the armor are fantastic, and in general, this is a fucking beautiful game. Like from a technical standpoint, like a lot of the boss design is really kind of fantastic and evocative. And just like the actual visual fidelity on the characters and animations and stuff, like that is as good as you would expect from a Team Ninja kind of game. So like the fact that they lean into those aesthetics makes perfect sense.
The enemies also look cool. There's just only 7 of them.
Right.
Yeah. They do have that kind of, the enemies do have this kind of like goofiness, other than the wheels, which I think are shitty, but like have this kind of goofiness that I do appreciate.
Yeah.
Classic mythological creatures.
I kind of liked the flaming wheels. I thought that those were.
I don't. I think a tire that's on fire is not a cool enemy. Like I get that it's a real thing. It's just I think it's cool. A skeleton that's on tire. You give me a wheel skeleton into it. Just a regular wheel with a face on the side, though. I can't abide a wheel with a face on the side.
I just thought those looked incredibly goofy, and I was into it.
Slack like to hate on Umibozu. That's what Slack like to hate on. Yeah,
the slime, the gels, the flams.
Yeah,
that you fight later.
Yeah.
But I'm glad at the very least, like it does allow for fashion customization there.
Yeah.
Tell us about the multiplayer other than co-op, and tell us about Glory.
Yes.
Give us the entire synopsis of the movie Glory.
Yeah.
Front to back.
I haven't seen it.
It's about a different kind of civil war.
You're going to get this later. You're going to unlock a place called the Tea House. And we can mention when you unlock it. But what you get is you join a clan. We kind of brushed over what's going on here, but essentially, whether your country has provinces, prefectures, states, or whatever, kind of imagine that like all these various cities or all these various states and families are all kind of trying to take over the country. At this time, there's 5 that are a ruling body, and Tokugawa's taking over. But you unlock this thing, and you can join a clan. It has some optional boss fights that are associated with it. And some optional benefits because you needed another system.
Of course.
Depending on how your clan is doing. And that relates to PvP, and I'll confess, I fought the Revenants. I didn't really do the PvP.
Okay.
But that relates to the PvP of invading other people and doing the arena stuff and stuff like that. If your clan is winning a lot, you get a higher benefit that nobody cares about. You also can buy the appearance copy stuff there from it, which will let you change and not be Nioh Anjin anymore. And this is great. And, they had, basically all of the major kind of players. It's like 8,200 Glory for Tokugawa. It's only 1,300 for Hattori Hanzo. But then in a recent patch, they're like, okay, so let's add in the female characters. Now, before this, the most expensive one was Edward Kelly, who's our big bad boss guy, and he was 20,000. The female characters are all 70,000, except for one, which is the ninja girl, who's 100,000.
Oh, jeez. So if you want to look like a female character, it costs you so much more PvP currency.
Yeah, and so let's say you're fighting the Revenants like I was, and again, I didn't really engage in the actual PvP, so maybe it's a better way to earn the glory. But I was fighting the Revenants. So the Revenants, you seem to get their level adjusted kind of in your level. So if I fight a level 20 Revenant as level 30, I'm going to get 20 glory times 2/3.
Right.
Something like that. It seems to be about there. Someone out there, I'm sure on a wiki, has actually done the math.
Right.
But so you can imagine to get 70,000 or 100,000 glory,
Yeah, it sounds excruciating.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to play as a grizzle dude.
No, it's not excruciating for you. Again, it's the same thing I said earlier about Kole. Like, anything that seems like I'm throwing shade at you, I'm actually throwing it at you. Like, they should not have made that choice.
Yeah. Like, they should have anticipated that, like, yes, those are cool models, which is, like, it would be fun to play as. They should probably have anticipated that, let's say, as a baseline, 50% of the audience would have wanted to play as a female protagonist.
At least possible, and that's such a thing. Like, people, that's important to people, right? Like, playing through as kind of the avatar that they relate to more, that they like more, or just like more. That's just a thing. And to have it so heavily weighted that way is weird.
Yeah,
to me.
All right, we'll continue on, but I'll paste it in there so you guys can see just what we're talking about. We're basically talking about before this new stuff. It was everybody was generally around 2,000 to 5,000 glory, and then suddenly, but if you want the women, you need 70,000.
Yeah,
that's
a real bummer.
That's frustrating.
It's a bungled thing. It's a cool addition that the implementation is bad.
Yeah.
So I think that's systems, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I think we did it. Kind of surprisingly, we're going to go through and kind of talk about. So the way this is going to work now that we're on to the B side of this podcast is we're going to talk in slightly more detail about the stuff me and Kole did.
Yeah.
And then we're going to ask Mai for kind of highlights about the stuff we didn't.
Yes.
Didn't do. And this is not going to be, even watch out for fireballs level of kind of zoom in.
No.
It's going to be a little bit quicker just because it seems silly to give a third of the game a really deep treatment, So it's all going to be fairly breezy.
Yeah.
But we can kind of talk about our impressions of the stuff that we got to, and we can also talk about ultimately, like, why where we got to, and why we didn't get further, which I think is again, that's not, it's really good that I'm really thankful, Mai, that you're here for this to kind of shore up our, what we didn't do, but like, it's not, it says something about this, like, that we both quit at the same place,
Yeah.
Which is I think is worth discussing. So we start out with these kind of chapters. The first one is the man with the guardian spirit.
Yes.
There.
And this takes place in the Tower of London. And it's kind of your tutorial mission. This is something that I gather they added after kind of an outcry saying, hey, we need something that tells us what's going on. And so, like, they have this protracted kind of sequence where, you are, naked effectively in a cell and trying to break out of this notorious prison.
You're trying to collect your Beefeater outfit.
Yes.
I'm not sure. Like, a part of me thinks it was always in there, and we'll get to it again. No spoilers, but this is also where the last mission of the game takes place.
Yes.
But then what seems so weird is that you go straight from this to the dojo, which is like now true tutorial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it was added after, maybe it was always there and they added the dojo. I don't know.
Yeah. Like the dojo is definitely where you learn about the like the living weapon kind of stuff, and it's where you do some of the more let's say arcane portions of character design and character customization. Yeah. But here it's very basic. Like, you are, kind of struggling and scrapping to again, like Gary said, put together your Palace Guard outfit.
Yeah.
Just to make sure you look absolutely ridiculous when you finally confront Kelly.
It's they know you're as British as possible for the Irishman that you are.
Yes.
So
it reminds me a lot of the Undead Asylum mission, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It feels a lot like that, where it's kind of teaching the systems by having incidences where you have to use them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. Like, I think it fulfills a very similar purpose.
Yeah.
Which the dojo wouldn't. Like, the dojo is not really about traversal, since it's just this very small area,
Yeah, it's not about interpreting the geometry of the world.
Yeah.
The boss here, based on an actual person, so that is not just...
I was really surprised about that. Like, I looked it up and found out there was a real Derek the Executioner.
There's a real Derek.
What?
Yeah, no.
Really?
He was one of the so executioners was not a desirable job because families and friends would take vengeance on the victims of execution. Derek is the person who kind of came up with a different way to hang people that would be much more effective, and that is where we get oil derricks from. Basically, anything that is called a derrick is from this dude and the way he figured out how to hang people. And also, his technology is foundational even today for the use of construction cranes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I totally didn't know this.
You create an alternate history by killing him in Nioh, so in the future there'll be no oil derricks.
Nope.
In the world of Nioh, there are no cars. It's like a reverse Mad Max. It's Sad Max. Or Mad Men. Like I'll take either. Those reversals.
Mad Men.
The villain of Sword in the Stone.
Yeah.
So he's Derek the Executioner is your first boss here, who is super easy.
Yeah.
He's real, really slow combos and everything. And then eventually Kelly uses some Amrita on him, which turns him into kind of a Souls, kind of an Oni figure. Mm-hmm. The weird thing about here is you only have to hit him a very small amount before your Guardian Spirit kills him for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like the second phase of this, you have to kill, I think it's like 20% of his health before the cutscene takes over and kills him.
Yeah.
So I think he's kind of a bad tutorial boss because he doesn't do anything that later bosses are going to do.
Right.
Like he doesn't actually train you how to play.
He's kind of forgettable. I mean, who's ever heard of the Derek crane or whatever?
Yeah, who's ever heard of a Derek?
Yeah.
Oil Derek.
All I can think of is, so you have Saoirse here for the entire first mission. She's incredibly, useful for you, including up to this boss. Maybe they were trying to communicate how important she is to William's survival by having her sweep in. Yeah.
Yeah, like having her win the thing for you, but it's still as a gameplay thing.
Oh, of course.
I don't think it accomplishes what you want to do with a tutorial boss.
No.
This should have it's very silly for them to have the kind of the yokai realms and all the things that are actually important to boss management not show up in this easy version and actually show up in the first boss, which is not super hard,
right? But
doesn't feel like a tutorial boss.
Yeah, and that first boss could be as many as 8 hours later too.
Yeah, it's very it's a really strange decision to have that. I think this is a real failure of so Derek, you're a fucking failure. The hell, Derek.
It was just hilarious because we pick on the name Derek so much, or we pick on characters named Derek so much.
It's a pretty funny name.
Yeah.
It should be noted this is the different spelling though. That is like oil Derek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that.
Yeah. Then you go to the Isle of Demons, which is your actual first Souls level. Well, you do the dojo first, but then you go to the Isle of Demons.
Yes.
Which is your Deckberg equivalent.
Yeah. This is what I played in the first alpha, and I was very surprised at how smoothly I moved through it this time in the final game.
Yeah. Same here. This is in the demo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's the demo I had done too.
Yeah.
But it felt much easier than the demo version.
Yeah.
It is much easier. The demo was a lot harder.
Yeah.
It was easy because of familiarity to move through it this time, but also they definitely made adjustments on this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But this is I kind of dig this level. Like they're showing you shortcuts. There's a good mix. Like you have these kind of dregs. Or at least this game's equivalent of dregs. Like the yokai who are thrown in here. The Oni or whatever they are, the big ogre dudes, they feel incredibly, substantial, when you finally fight them. There are very few of them that are actually wandering around. So they feel like mini bosses. I dig this level a lot.
They feel so big, bad, and scary, and then later on they're just like, oh yeah, here's another one.
Yeah, this is this dude.
The first one is incredibly intimidating.
Yeah.
The first one you run into inside that house, and it's he's a mini boss. He's surrounded by regular enemies, and you're going to end up, if you don't meticulously clear out all the hollows around him, you're going to have to fight them all at once, which early on is not really sustainable.
Especially when you don't know how.
Right.
You haven't learned the system.
Yeah. I don't know his move sets. I don't have a real vocabulary either. You get a bow and arrow earlier in this that you could possibly use, but ammo is still very scarce. It's pretty hard. Another difference in the so when you get down to the second part of this village, and kind of move around, you run into more of these things, and I think this part is pretty well designed as well.
Yeah.
You get to the boss. A difference between the demo and the real version, or the demo I played, and I haven't talked to anybody else who had this problem, so it could have been some kind of glitch. But initially, when you went into the boss fog, dregs, or hollows that you hadn't fought could go in there as well.
Oh, wow.
So if you didn't clear out the way to the boss in the demo I played, you would be joined, there would be kind of like people would sneak their way in or come in.
Yeah, you would get ads in this incredibly cramped arena. Oh,
It
God,
sucked.
that sounds awful.
And I was really glad they changed it. And I don't know if it was like some kind of weird glitch or something, happened, if it was intended or not, but it wasn't a problem when I actually played the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never saw that.
So, this first guy is Onryoki. Onryoki? Okay. Who is a big ogre.
Yep.
Like there's nothing to this guy.
Yeah.
As far as story goes.
Yeah, he's got Kratos blades, except instead of blades, they are balls of steel, like a ball and chain.
He's got balls of steel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this guy will pop up later as mini boss as well. But it is a good fight. It demonstrates they have learned from Souls, or at least they picked up a thing from Souls. He has two phases. Like when he gets down to 50% health, the chains will break and he becomes faster
and easier.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just his first phase feels like the sweet chains are harder to actually dodge.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like he becomes
it's kind of a
more,
weird choice. He de-escalates.
Yeah, he becomes more aggressive and stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is fine. Like this is a fine boss fight. You move on to the next set of levels, Deep in the Shadows, which is a level that takes place in a mine. And this was where I started feeling a little bit of the it reminds me again of Let It Die, where it's like Let It Die sets its first 10 hours in a sewer. Like this is a very short start to mine ratio of being in a real video game ass just stone caverns. Like I think this level's really bland.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a whole lot to recommend this.
And also you're mostly just fighting dudes in this. Like they're pirates, I guess, like pirates mixed with samurai who are just kind of sitting around, at least for the top portion of this.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the kind of bottom portion is this kind of lake filled with yokai. This is where you're going to run into your first kappa.
Yeah.
Which we mentioned before. You're going to run to a normal one, but then you come back here with a submission, and it's oops all kappa. But this is a really huge kind of Souls-esque big field with big strong wandering enemies in it.
Yeah.
This kind of lower floor to this.
Did you actually stop the kappa here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Every kappa must die.
Yeah.
I did not suffer any kappas to live.
Well, they wouldn't bow. Come on, can they blame you?
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, I went after them, but mostly because at this point I was still incredibly interested in new loot.
Yeah.
The boss here was a huge wall for me. Like this took 2 nights to get through, and that is not what I want. This is Hino Enma, which is kind of a vampire woman with bat wings and who attacks with an umbrella, who's primarily trying to teach you 2 things, it seems. To use a different stance, mainly low stance so you can dodge quicker, and also to protect yourself against paralysis, because she will pile this stat effect on you with some of her attacks until you leave yourself wide open and she can restore her health off of you.
The next boss is my wall, so I'm not going to blame you for having a wall on her. But when I got to her, I had put the points into the ninja and the Omnio anti-paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
So you got 5 anti-paralysis that respawn every time you respawn.
Yeah.
So you can take. I think that I like this boss. Like this was several hours.
Yeah.
I died a lot on her. I didn't maybe 2 hours, and it was very hard for me because of that paralysis. I actually like this boss a lot if it didn't have paralysis.
Oh, it's super fun. It is so reflex intensive.
Yeah, it's a really, really fun to dodge her and kind of figure her stuff out. Paralysis, it just ends up being a thing where it doesn't become about the dodge, it becomes about the consequence
Yeah.
for the attack. So it's like, it becomes demoralizing, where it's like, if the paralysis attack was just something that did the amount of damage that her follow-up would do,
Mm-hmm.
it might be functionally the same, but it would just feel better because I wasn't just sitting there watching my character get hurt for no reason.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of like grabs and paralyses and stuff in action games.
Yeah.
Or slows for that matter.
I'm not either, but it is something where it's rewarding you if you had explored. If you just wear that full archer set that you find, plus the talisman, you'll have enough paralysis resistance that you'll never actually get paralyzed. It'll just get
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, it taught me something, which is how I beat her easily. Is I was like, archer set, she's an easy range boss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When she goes up in the sky. Yeah.
Yeah. You can stagger her very easily with range attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then she attacks super fast in close combat.
Yeah.
Yeah. She also has a really good visual design as well. Like her face is super otherworldly, and kind of stretched and has strange proportions. Like it is a good design.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like this boss a lot.
Yeah.
This is my favorite boss that I dealt with in the game.
Yeah.
I think
I came around on it in the moment. I was done with it. But like once I actually figured it out and could actually act on the tells as opposed to being rooted in place, it became very fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't do the Twilight mission version.
Okay.
Systems. We didn't mention that. Maybe we should real quick. What Twilight missions are?
Yeah. Let's talk about Twilight, because that's another kind of submission. Let's talk about Twilight missions real quick.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about the content of any of them, but what are they in general?
No.
Why?
They're replaying a full mission that you've already replayed before, but the difficulty is New Game Plus levels.
Jesus. Yeah.
So, like, the lowest level one is like level 40, and they go up over 100, and I did a couple before I realized they really are a waste of time other than, you want more.
Yeah, and they're highlighted in the interface, like they're very much encouraging you to do them.
Mm-hmm. They're not worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did one of them just to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fine. I went back to the first zone and did an early one because I thought that they'd be very difficult.
Yeah.
And it wasn't super difficult because I was already pretty far in the game, but it was super boring. And I was just like, oh, this would work, I guess, if I was trying to grind for something or other. But
the rewards are good. And it's
Yeah.
like, what if that mission you did before was, oops, all yokai?
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah.
We can move off. After, oops, we better mention them.
Yeah. The next mission is called The Spirit Stone Slumbers, and this takes place in kind of this abandoned village that is full of dudes and ninja, with a lot more yokai than you've seen before. Like they're being peppered in as a more common kind of nuisance, along with these tiny little cyclops yokai that'll harry you and then occasionally turn into gigantic cyclopes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you can destroy them really quick if you just get them when they're little and don't let them transform.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then later you'll feel bad about them.
Yeah.
The first half of this level I think is actually pretty cool as far as like a level design stance. Like exploring this village I thought was fun.
Yeah.
You get to the halfway point and you fight the first boss here, Nioh. Which is this lightning chimera thing. It's this like monkey-faced tiger lion thing with lightning power.
Which is my wall. And you'll fight it like 3 more times as just regular enemy in worse conditions.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I aced this, and not a weird brag. I gave up on this game, but like this, I did not have a problem with Nioh.
Yeah.
No idea why.
I failed against him a couple times, but then I summoned help just to kind of engage with that. And yep, that sure is co-op.
I could see him really not working.
My first time I almost killed him. And so I was like, this is going to be easy. 3 hours later, I finally figured out the trick. Which is the back, when you walk in at the back right, there's a little shrine building that the roof will never get destroyed.
Yeah.
So you can avoid any of the lightning underneath it.
Yeah. Yeah, you told me that yesterday, and I was actually very surprised. I would not have noticed that.
I just died so many times I finally figured it out.
Yeah.
Later you find him in smaller arenas, and you do not have that protection. He
Geez.
also has less health. So.
Yeah. And this is a boss that will just, like, if you let them go unchecked, most of the available, walking space will be full of yokai realms.
Mm-hmm.
Because his attacks just lay those down. I was about to say like candy. Like candy at a parade. There we go.
They do go away after like 2 rounds of lightning.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The second half of this level is kind of boring. Again, it's in more tunnels. Like you're in this kind of catacomb or tomb beneath the main shrine building. And even
this part I thought was really cool, actually.
Oh wow.
I had a lot of fun with it, especially once you team up.
Oh yeah, like once you get your buddy down there. Yeah, that's actually that is pretty cool. Especially when you start fighting like the statues and stuff like that. Like that is a cool wrinkle. Also, like there are traps down here, which are kind of new, including trick floors and things like that. Like that is there. It is just I'm kind of done with tunnels at the moment. My tunnel energy may recharge at some point in the near future, but right now I'm done with tunnels.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience with it, where it's like I like the co-op, but I just the level design was not there for me.
Yeah.
It is really trap and ambush based, So like, and the traps and ambushes kind of circle in on themselves in a weird way. Like there's a section with 2 or like a rolling boulder that falls down some stairs, and if you dive out of the way, you go back to an earlier section of the level. You don't like just fall into a pit. Things like that are kind of these minor concessions to to friendliness. Yeah.
And the statues won't respawn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is good because those are tough. Yeah.
Although insanely fire damage, weak against fire.
Yeah.
Like if you have the fire shuriken ninja ability, pretty much one will kill them.
Oh, weird.
Almost kill them. They'll be close to dead.
The game does something that kind of brings up another point, which is something that was a big problem I had with Salt and Sanctuary, where there's not a visual way to distinguish elemental weaknesses.
Yeah.
So like they
Why
are really
weak to fire. Why?
Yeah, they're rock,
Yeah.
and I found that to be the case with almost all of the. You fight a gigantic water boss later that is weak to fire. And that should be the opposite. It seems like they should be strong to fire. That's what water does.
Weak against lightning, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so what it becomes is just like, okay, do I just try everything should I try to kit out a build that has every elemental verb and I just try everything? Or do I just end up have this wiki tax where like every time I get to an enemy, I check the wiki to see what it's actually weak against, And it's not the worst offender in that respect. That's Salt and Sanctuary, but it's the same problem. That the game has. So like the statues, I never had, eventually I figured out how to fight them. I didn't have that big of a problem, but I also never figured out that weakness because it didn't make any sense and I wasn't just going to guess.
Yeah.
And they are pretty easy to fight because of how slow they are. If you just get
They're really
them.
slow.
Yeah, you just have to get them alone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The boss for this area is Tachibana Munashige, and this is just a
Sort of.
What's that? Yeah, it is Kelly. It is Kelly in disguise as Munashige. But this is like a samurai duel. Like it's a dude fight down in this tomb that is littered with these pillars, which is good because his primary attack, his technique, which I think you can get later, is this what is it? EO draw attack that he does on a charge. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually had it on him already.
Oh, wow.
And he was like a really simple fight, which is about to be punished for me later. What I found out about my research today is he has an Amrita steel attack.
What?
Where he'll grab you and he'll drain your souls, so to speak.
like King Alent, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I found it out when I was just kind of refreshing myself with the bosses today.
Yeah, weird. That never procced. Maybe that's more common when you find them later.
But yeah,
later he doesn't have that attack.
Oh, bizarre.
Still has a grab, but it doesn't drain.
Yeah. Well, maybe later he isn't Kelly in disguise. Maybe it's the actual Munashige.
It's actually straight up Kelly. Oh, Mishige doesn't.
Yeah.
no. After this is actually the first time when we switched to a new zone. When we talked about that with the Kodama, we move over to the silver mine level. So it's a new zone. You're starting, just to give that context for this. This is the poison level, which has a cool concept, as we talked about before, where the poison is coming from these kind of like these rock creature things, which I appreciate. Like that you can do something about it. It becomes a little bit like it feels very Soulsy, and like you're hunting down the necromancers or whatever. And it's like a mix up between Catacombs and Blighttown, where like you're finding, you can shoot them at range. They regenerate, so if you're shooting them at range, like you either need to use the cannon or shoot them at range and quickly follow up with an in-person attack.
Yeah,
here. So that part is actually very cool.
But you have the machines that purify the air.
Yeah,
and
temporarily.
It's kind of my favorite. I mean, it is a little bit of a chore, especially later when you have more than one rock in your poison. But it really became probably my favorite Souls Poison level because it was kind of fun to do.
Yeah, and like they do the Souls Poison thing where they scatter treasure around, like to try and use up your time. Except your time isn't just like, hey, how much is this stacking on me? It is like, when will it come back? You're buying yourself a little bit of time by finding the machine. Like it really does feel like you're claiming more of the map for yourself as safe space.
Yeah.
Which all works enemies that aren't affected by poison because
right, because they're skeletons. Mostly.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. This is the level itself is all well and good. I have a lot of problems with this boss. He's so a lot of it is technical, which is not something that I usually care about. But this thing is not equipped to exist in the game engine that it's in. It was constantly like doing weird 90-degree turns, like getting stuck at like clipping through everything.
Yeah.
Its hitbox was really inconsistent with walls. It got stuck in the wall at one point. It was not having a good time. And this was fine because actually fighting it felt impossible, like fighting this like thing one-on-one. It was all about this kind of like, because you're in this huge arena with multiple bridges and kind of pits and things like that. And I just ended up spending a lot of time running around with it, getting in my shots when I could, and it just like flailing in the architecture, glitching out, and then weirdly doing like instant 180s, which looks so goofy with this gigantic creature. Like its size does not belie its moveset in any way, in a way that just like doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So.
That's weird.
We should say it's a centipede.
Yeah, it's like
thank you.
It's a gigantic centipede. It's a gigantic centipede that is made up of segments of these, poison spewing kind of rock things that we've seen before. And again, it has a nightmare face because they like putting nightmare faces on things. So this is bizarre because I didn't actually have that experience with it clipping through things and having that. Like I also noticed like it was super easy to get him into a pattern where he would make himself vulnerable, because when he's charging, all you have to do is block, and then he rears up and fires a couple of attacks before he like just decides I'm kind of sleepy right now, and then lays down and makes himself weak to you.
That's the experience I had.
Yeah.
So I thought it was actually a refreshingly easy boss.
Yeah. And like the cool thing about it is like after you do a certain amount of damage, it breaks apart and it leaves behind one poison emitting piece that you have to go and take out as you're waiting for it to come back. And sometimes it will post up on the ceiling too and attack at range until it comes down.
And it'll go into tunnels and get more poison rock.
Yeah.
It wasn't that hard. It was just like a goofy, like I felt like I was winning because the game, like the boss was failing.
Yeah.
Like I never really figured out like, oh, I'm doing a cool, I figured this out. It just kind of like I ran around until it died because, glitches.
Yeah.
Essentially.
It, like what you're describing almost sounds like a memory leak.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. I don't know. Yeah, I've looked it up a little bit online, and I've seen other people have the getting stuck on the wall thing.
Yeah.
That's something definitely not unique to me, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The next level is a little bit of a clunker for me, actually. The Ocean Roars Again.
I hate this level. Like, I think this sucks.
I like how it looks.
Oh, yeah.
I like how it looks.
Yeah, I guess. Like I don't know. Like it's a village that is half subsumed by water. It's flooded with yokai. I don't know if Cole did that on purpose.
Of
it's
course.
flooded with yokai. So the things that so one, it's all about like kind of footing. Like you can fall into the water.
No good.
Which is fine. You know, like I do your souls. Do that version of the souls level. The flan yokai that you fight, I think really suck to fight.
Umibozu.
Yeah.
They're extraordinarily weak against fire, and then you can knock them back into the water that they just jumped out of, and they die dry.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's the I didn't like navigating this, and then this was also the first time I noticed the false dead ends, like the dead ends that were to set up for submissions.
Yeah.
And there were other ones in other levels, but this is just the first time it popped up.
Yeah.
What's cool to me about this level, and by the way, I don't like it. I don't like sauce either. But what's cool to me about this level is that you could, within like 2-3 minutes of entering, go straight to the boss battle.
Yeah, yeah.
It's going to be to your benefit to go find some bonfires, but
yeah, it's definitely a different structure. Like to have the boss window, midway through the level. I just wish that going and finding the secondary goals was a little bit more satisfying, because like it does require a little bit of fiddly like navigation on rooftops and stuff.
It also has no signposting on how many there are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Like there are 3 of them, but like the first one is right there, and you think, okay, they're not going to give me one of 3 things for free. No, it's just totally 3 things.
Yeah,
but you get all 3 to go. By the way, hey, you've gotten all 3, or you've gotten 2 of 3. It's just there are 3.
Yeah.
Why you're doing this is, as you light these up, it's actually lighting fires in the boss arena, which are going to be super useful as you fight a larger version of these slime enemies, or these flan enemies, called Umibozu, which is gigantic. It's colossal. And it fights by throwing shipwrecks at you. If these fires are lit in the arena, smaller Umibozu will not come after you. They will not flood the arena. However, you can kind of sacrifice one of these fires and let a few of those in to get a long-lasting fire effect on your weapon, which will do much more damage to the boss itself.
Or you can use the ninjutsu or the magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about this, where it's like it's counterintuitive to me that this is weak to fire, which is frustrating to me. It's also it's the first boss with a one-hit kill attack. Oh
yeah, this gigantic Iron Man beam.
Which the frustrating thing to me is that it's very easy to see, so you can get out of the way. The hurt box on it is not where the particle effect ends.
Yeah.
It's a little bit further than that, which I died to that a couple times. It can also start with it, and if it does this as its first move, if you're buffing up, if you're applying a buff or you're using one of the torches, you just die, and it's never do one-hit attacks. Like, stop doing that in games.
Yeah, stop it.
And so with this second phase, it turns into just like a giant version of one of the big flans, and some baby flans. And this isn't super hard or anything. It's mostly about just keeping your footing.
Yeah.
But
like it pops up out of the middle of the arena, so it changes the topography of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like
the
the
only real danger is its jump up attack.
Yeah.
Where it'll jump up and then land, and if you're in close, it does a lot of damage.
Yeah. I like the theming of this. Like this is a gigantic enemy that is using its arena, out here on the open ocean to its benefit, and also like, hey, it attacks by throwing shipwrecks at you. Like,
yeah, it hucks ships at you.
Yeah,
which I appreciate.
Yeah, which is great. Like it feels suitably, and I don't use this word lightly, epic.
I wish that it was visually a little bit more interesting too. Like it is just kind of like a big gumdrop, kind of shaped thing.
With a floating head inside it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got through this. This sapped a lot of my patience. This was probably precursor to quitting. But then I actually quit at the Spider Nest Castle, which I know I've been complaining about how there's not enemy variety. And this does introduce a new enemy. It was like a monkey's paw version, because I don't think these spiders are very fun to fight. And that was kind of like what did it for me. I got to the end of this. I got to where I could have beat the boss. But I was just like, I don't want to play this anymore, and then didn't.
Yeah.
But this is a castle over on the spiders. It kind of deals with slow the same way the last one dealt with footing, where there are like sections where you will not move as quickly, and spiders that can kind of debuff you.
Yeah.
To make you move slower.
Yeah. There'll be like spiderweb bridges similar to what you saw in Brightstone Cove, Seldora.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's very Brightstone Cove stove.
Brightstone Coleman stove.
Yeah. Breitbart Coldstone. The worst ice cream parlor that no one should fucking go to.
When you tip, they sing Dixie.
Yeah. Man. So yeah, but you go through this castle. It's another castle, which like at first this was kind of novel, going through the actual level. And when I looked at all the rest of the levels,
you're gonna get tired of them.
Yeah, like you're gonna get a lot of castles.
Yeah.
And the boss is pretty much Quelaag.
Yeah.
It's Jargon. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. It's Quelaag with slow instead of magma.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she's easy.
Yeah. Like by this point, I had the slow, but actually, it feels like they timed this out because if you use the slow talisman on her at the wrong time, she will not get out of the part where she is, she will not get out of the phase where she is guarding her weak spot, and so you can lock yourself into not being able to do a lot of damage.
Did not experience that. That stinks.
Yeah, but yeah. This is Juro Gumo again, another creature from folklore.
Which is where they took Quelaag from.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
But what you'll notice if you're actually paying attention to the story and the theming of this whole event is that the real problem behind everything that's going on is a teapot.
What?
And if you're actually paying attention yet to the cutscenes of the story behind what you're doing here. And so she's not the boss of it. The boss of it isn't actually a boss. You never fight him. This is when you get the tea house unlocked.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I went online and saw that you got that cutscene, with the tea house after this, and that's why they introduced that part. This, I might be as good a time as any, since this is when I noped out, though, to kind of talk about. So I don't feel like I wasn't paying attention, right? Like I feel like I was paying attention to the story. Almost never did I feel like I really understood why I was doing anything in this game. You'd have a cutscene between levels where like. Sometimes they would be dialogueless. Like sometimes it'd be Williams there and a lady shows up. And then for no particular reason, then I would go to a mine, or like somebody would show up and they'd be like, we need you to do this. And the actual like storytelling, I feel like it like weirdly lost its thesis. If you look at actually what is just presented in the game, right? Like if you know about it going into it, like that's one thing. But if you don't know about this stuff going into it, I was sent here because this like warlock is trying to use magic to win a war in England. And what actually happens is another person just kind of says like, hey, we'll help you out. If you help us out, go do these chores and meet a bunch of famous people.
Yeah.
Almost none of which happens like in the level. It's always these little like these kind of ceremonies between levels. Like I felt like the context and how it presented its story is really bad. I never I didn't. There's a lot of like implied importance to the people that were introduced.
Yeah.
Which I understand. Like there's a version of somebody who's out there or a straw man in my head who is like, this is super racist because they're talking about actual historical figures from another culture. I just don't know them,
Yeah.
So like if you present a game like it is a failure for an Assassin's Creed game, for example, to just have Thomas Jefferson show up and then not have any kind of internal context for who he is. And that happens. So that's bad if they do that. So I'm not letting American games off the hook for doing it.
Right.
It's just
they do that.
Yeah,
they do the same thing where if you read their bio you get more info, but otherwise you don't.
Yeah,
that sucks.
Yeah,
like a story has to be internally consistent. Like you have to present the even if the player knows who this person is, like William doesn't know. So like it just becomes this weird thing where people are constantly being introduced with this sense of importance and gravitas that meant zero to me.
Yeah.
So it had this real like wearying effect where it's like I have no reason why am I invested in this world or these characters or what's happening.
Yeah.
This is not tied to like what I showed up here for. This feels like it is it feels like all side content.
Yeah.
To the premise. and I don't know who anyone is or why I should care.
Yeah.
Like William isn't very developed. Nobody is developed because they assume familiarity with the characters. Like they're just sketches. Like, you know what this character is like.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't. Like, you know, and it made it not work for me on a storyline level. Zero. Like as bad as any game I've played as far as how like the story conveyed itself to me.
Yeah.
You know,
I can't defend story, but what I can say is if you're doing the submissions, they tend to give a lot more theming and background on the side of characters.
Yeah.
The story, why he is so determined to get back Cersei, you know, why is he puppy dog in love for his Celtic spirit? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and so I will, you know, jump onto what you're saying, Gary, and say that, like, it's not that we're incurious, right? It's not that this is something from a different culture, you know, like I'm kind of fascinated by it, you know, like I want a new opportunity to learn about these things. I'm not walking into it with anything more than, you know, a video game fans, you know, pop culture, you know, survey class knowledge of any of these figures, you know, just the most outsized versions of the most notable people here. It really could have done, you know, with fewer assumptions about the audience. And, you know, that's a little ridiculous because, you know, we at so many points have praised the Souls game for like letting you assemble this stuff for yourself out of descriptions. There's just something about the fact that these are presented as people with different kind of alliances and stuff that, you know, I don't have a lot of context for because I am not steeped in that.
It doesn't tell its stories like a Souls game does.
Yeah.
You know, like there aren't really, like, you know, a lot of the times, like the descriptions or supplementary text you do have on items are not about piecing together this larger world. There are a couple of examples where that does happen with like named swords and stuff, where you learn a little bit, but a lot of times, you know, not the case.
Right.
So it doesn't. I never had that feeling of like archaeology to it. You know, and so many of the this kind of plays into like a lot of the bosses and stuff like that too, which since they're monsters, right? So they're not characters. So they have that mythological element where like there's a little bit of added weight, you know, to a character because, you know, it would be like the equivalent of like, you know, a Medusa or something like that. Yeah. But they're not characters, you know, so, and without that character, it's really hard to kind of drive the drama. You know, and there are bosses that are characters as well, but then there's also the gigantic water blob. Yeah. You know, and like even if you know the backstory for the gigantic water blob, it's still a gigantic water demon. You know, I don't know, like something about how it didn't add up.
This is where it hurts a little bit where you stopped.
Yeah.
Because, and I'm not saying, you know, well, if you could just push through, you would suddenly love this game. I don't think your opinion would have changed. Yeah. But after this, most of the bosses have like actual extra story to them as far as who they are. You know, you're fighting again, though. You know, it's very much a who's who of the Sengoku period.
Yeah.
But it again gets this thing. It is very Dark Soulsian in how it does it, where you'll get these people and you'll fight them, or you'll meet them, or you'll fight this boss, and then. Again, if you're doing submissions, so it's like, yeah, but what do you have to do for this payoff? But if you're doing these submissions and stuff, you're fighting these things that give you more hints where you go, oh, that female ogre I just fought is actually Tokugawa's wife. Yeah. You know, things like that. You start figuring these things out, as well as the reasoning behind why they're doing what they're doing. Being the period that it is, most of the stories are pretty depressing and terrible.
Yeah, it's not like.
And then, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, to clarify, like it's not the individual story itself or stories within that I'm criticizing. It's how the game is telling the stories. Yeah, where like it's just, you know, that the backstory and the actual like cutscenes of playing through the game. At no point did I really have like a firm understanding of why what I was doing mattered or what the stakes really were. Yeah. You know, like it would say like, hey. This is an enemy general of ours, and they are here. Like, go to their place. You know, I'm like, okay, like I'll go do that. Or like, hey, this guy wants to duel you. Go do it. Okay, you know, like it, and that was the the context I was lacking was more than just kind of who owns this place and that I am there. And I was told to go by somebody in a room with paper walls, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like the actual story, like if you actually knew it, like it might actually be a very good story. And it probably is. It's probably a great story. But I don't think the game conveys its story well at all.
I don't think it's a great story. I think it's a good story. I think it's probably Koei Tecmo's best, because they do this a lot with their games, and I think they do a better job here than they ever have before.
Mm-hmm.
But they still do the same thing of, so they've created this whole Amrita gotta go kill Edward Kelly narrative that didn't actually exist in history.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And on the same time, while you're doing things, they kind of try to go, well, this is stuff he actually did in history, so let's make him do this too.
Yeah.
And kind of meld the two in a way that doesn't work that well, and also comes off as just horribly factually inaccurate. And I'm not even a historian. I mean, it's pretty awful.
Yeah.
You're probably right, like what I'm picking up on, right? And that's, it's the inelegant melding of the story stuff they added and the Japanese Forrest Gump.
Exactly. I was going to make that same comparison. I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
It's a pile of half measures between a monster of the week, like, hey, go here and kill this yokai because you're the only person who can do it, and also participate in this, grander battle that is happening here within Japan. And then also this meta plot with Kelly, who is manipulating things, for what you ultimately came here for. It's those three things kind of vying for stage time and none of them actually being fully articulated.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are really cool. You'll end up way toward the end here, where you're chasing Kelly through the Battle of Sekigahara.
Yeah.
And you're not actually participating in the battle, but you're just seeing all these demon and other samurai fighting around you.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to charge through to try and get to where Kelly is. And it mostly actually becomes like a boss rush. But some of the settings and the set pieces they're pretty awesome. But they don't do a good job melding it together. They want you to do too much side content to kind of get some of the backstory of things. And all of it helps a lot if you grew up Japanese. Because then you know the story.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about the beginning of the Edo period.
Yeah.
But that's not the same in the West.
No, it's fascinating. It's something that I want to know more. I don't think this game is the best way to do that.
It doesn't feel educational. It's interesting. I want to pick up on something you said, Mai, which is that the game, when you said that it expects you to kind of do a lot of the side content to get that context. It reminds me of kind of a grander philosophy in Nioh, which is that it is balanced and made for you to go all in to make it work, right? So like the way, when we spend our 17 hours talking about the systems of this game and how they all kind of relate to each other, like a bunch of them are not necessary, but they all prop each other up in this way that like if you're not going all in on all of them, you may as well kind of not engage at all, right? Like the side stuff that it was presenting, where it's like I didn't really want to do side missions, really. Like I would like to end this game, I want this to be done. I had that feeling like over and over, where it's like this game clearly wants me to do the stuff that I want to have presented as an optional thing, right? And that ties into the mechanics, but also ties into the narrative, where like the base narrative doesn't stand on its own without this supplementary kind of stuff holding it up.
Yeah.
Which it was just like didn't because I'm not going to be I want a game that caters to the person who's not going to 100% it, right? Like I requiring that kind of like commitment is not my favorite thing.
Yeah.
I go back to the Bloodborne thing, but pre-DLC.
Yeah.
You're having to do the challenge dungeons to get the quote unquote true story.
Yeah, and that bums me out too.
It reminds me of that.
And I wasn't super into that either,
Yeah.
So, but that's a really apt comparison, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. at the very base level, what I want from a game story is a compelling reason to do the next thing, a driving force, or something to pique my curiosity about what's going to come through next. When I got to this level, the spider castle, and I realized fighting this new enemy type wasn't that different, or wasn't quite as engaging as I wanted. And when I looked forward a little bit and realized that beyond this cool ice level that I was going to get a little bit into and stop, that it was going to be some very similar things. And I realized that the actual story itself wasn't going to propel me. It failed to meet that, right away. It failed to meet that requirement that I have, which kind of sucks, because I know that there are cool moments beyond this. I've seen the bosses and things, but like it didn't compel me. It didn't push me or pull me.
You have to care what's over the next hill.
Yeah.
And
you fight a bloodborne eye monster.
Yeah. I saw that guy, but I put in the cheat code where you get to see that boss fight by not fighting it.
Yeah. Okay.
And the cheat code.
So enter YOU.
Yeah. It's a PC cheat only. Yeah. So that's kind of where we stopped. But one of the reasons, many reasons we have Mai on here, in addition to just being generally delightful, is that.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome. Is that we will kind of talk about some stuff that happens after this that are kind of highlights. Here, just so we can kind of hit it. Cole and I both watched this stuff on YouTube. I didn't watch a full Let's Play. I checked out every level and every boss, though.
Yeah.
Because the Let's Plays had like deaths and stuff, and I didn't want to, and the game is long too. We didn't really talk about this, but like the Let's Play that I saw, that I was using to find these bosses was 66 videos, and each one was about a half hour. And he did all the side stuff, but it was almost 40 hours, and I wasn't going to watch a 40-hour. Watch several full TV shows. Watch the complete Breaking Bad to prepare. I wasn't going to do that, so I kind of skipped around. But I'm familiar with most of this stuff in kind of broad terms.
Yeah.
But
I think now I could go through it in about 35, 40 hours. The first playthrough was like 80.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's meaty.
Yeah. Like 80 hours is the one that I heard.
So what you're going into after this is very much this theming of what Kelly's trying to do is create more and more war, so more and more of the yokai realm invades into our world.
Mm-hmm.
So the very next mission after you guys stopped, it's June, and there's a village that's snowing.
Huh. Yeah, I saw the snowy village for sure. Which, at the very least, looked pretty.
Yeah.
It's pretty. What you'll end up doing, you'll fight a new way again. The snow woman you fight is actually Edward Kelly having resurrected No, who was Nobunaga's wife.
Yeah. So, pretty important figure.
Yeah. Then you have, again, these death lilies that are showing up, which is... It's similar to the snow concept. It's like, we shouldn't be having these showing up here. What's going on? And it's more of just this yokai realm that's coming in.
Yeah.
And you're getting kind of these crystals that you're getting into where you start beating up. And this is kind of building up to where you get to the Immortal Flame battle. And the mountain next to Kyoto is what protects Kyoto from being overrun by demons.
Okay.
And we completely glossed over your cat.
Yeah, your cat friend who acts like your narrator, right?
Yeah, Nekomata is like, he's the greatest, right?
he's pretty good.
He's really cute. Yeah,
I love his super deep voice.
He's a cat with an eye patch.
Yeah. We also didn't mention the funniest moment, which is when you meet Hanzo and he pulls a cat out of his shirt to tell the time by looking at his pupils.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. Every time I look into Roar's eyes, I know it's per o'clock. So. That's all I got.
It's bonfire side cat time.
It's treat 30. So
Kelly, his whole thing he's doing is trying to gather more and more and more evidence. So he goes to this crystal that is the gateway, and he saps it all out with Irasirshi, who's for some reason the most powerful guardian spirit there is. Mm-hmm. What's been going on in the cutscenes is Hanzo's like, you gotta serve Ieyasu Tokugawa. You're all like, I don't know about this lord you guys are serving. And then you're getting kind of snippets of the real events of the people who are going to become the traitors and things like that. Mm-hmm. But they're not really spending enough time on it to actually really paint the picture unless you know the history.
Yeah.
But so it's like, all right, well, let's go run through the Iga village the ancient ninja village to get to Tokugawa faster. Again, it's kind of a famous set piece. This is where Nobunaga went in and killed everybody, killed all the women, the children, the civilians. He just killed everybody.
Right.
At the end, you fight a giant toad.
Yeah, I've seen this guy on YouTube, and he's a cool design. Is this which one of these is considered to be like what's the super difficult? Like what is the hardest boss in this game? Because I feel like I've seen this and the Ogress, both kind of brought up, which is the next boss, which we run into after this, kind of brought up in that phrasing.
The Ogress is your lessons from having fought Onryoki. If you've learned that lesson from that earlier fight of, this is easy if I just treat it like a ranged battle. It is. So
yeah.
I don't know. For me, my wall was Nioh.
Yeah.
And some of the optional duel fights. But until DLC, we'll get there.
I know the next boss, just from like watching it online and everything, is kind of a pretty easy. This is a puzzle boss, Honda, where the arena has these kind of crystals in the area that you just have to destroy, and to kind of kill him instantly. So if you, I understand, like, so from looking online, like if you have the high level bomb ninja magic or ninjutsu, this will take care of that pretty quickly.
Kind of the next boss that I singled out here as being real notable is the Gasha Dokuro, which is this gigantic skeletal creature. It's almost like fighting the Tower Knight or the One Reborn. It looks like a little bit. Is this in the level that is that massive battle that you talked about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so you're fighting him with Hanzo and with Okatsu. And so what you kind of want to do is you want to hit his hands, and then that'll knock him down where you can hit his head.
Like you have to climb up, and then like when he's leaning, his Amrita down, to rest it. That like you want to get his weak points there. And this is another folklore beast that is an amalgamation of a bunch of corpses, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of fun because again you're fighting it as a 3-person team.
Yeah, well, it's super. I mean, like in a game that has been full of kind of very basic Souls type stuff, large enemies or casters or dual kind of things. Like this is a huge set piece in like a gigantic kind of battlefield. And
it is really cool that you're going through this battlefield and seeing all these battles going across you, but you're just kind of running through, going after Kelly.
The other one that I made a note of here is it's similar to, it's like a duel fight, but you're fighting something called someone called the Obsidian Samurai, which
Yasuke.
Yeah, Yasuke, who is the real kind of the original foreign samurai, a person from Africa who was kind of rescued and kind of brought in and made into a samurai. And so like fighting this other notable character in history, like somebody who has kind of a similar trajectory to you, except he was taken under a different lord.
The true first Western samurai, and yeah, he served under Nobunaga. Mm-hmm.
I do enjoy his guardian spirit, which is a bear.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of cute, yeah. But then like this has to be like well into the end game because you start fighting like Oda Nobunaga like at the actual castle, because like Kelly revives him and he fights you to a certain extent, but this is another fight that is going to stop before he finishes you off.
Yeah, this is at the end of a boss rush mode where you literally fight like 4 bosses.
Oh jeez.
Including refighting Hino no Enma. And then you finally get to him and fight him, and I think it's 25% health, but you get him down hurt, and then the fight stops. Yeah.
But like this is an important story beat because this has been Kelly's entire plot. Like we raise this, warlord back up, and we'll maximize the chaos. Nobunaga, he was chilling in the afterlife. Like he was happy with the life that he lived. And he says like, hey, you're going to be foolish if you think you can take me and command me. Nobody commands me. And like Kelly's plot unravels at this point because Nobunaga is not going to play ball. And this just looks like it articulates like a duel fight, with his.
It's a duel fight. What's kind of cool about it is that he uses elemental buffs on his weapon, and he'll kind of do every single one.
Oh, geez.
So there's no way. There's no way spec against this fight.
Okay. Yeah.
Unless you're better at hot equipping than I am.
Yeah. The final boss, the climactic boss is the menu.
Yeah. But so essentially, he's not that hard of a dual fight if you kind of avoid his attacks.
Yeah.
No matter how you expect, he's probably going to hurt you at some point.
Yeah. And then everything goes to a head when you fight Kelly himself, which is kind of a basic caster fight, except he's, a snake romancer. And sends whirlwinds and stuff after you.
Well, he's super easy this time, but then he summons you on Orochi because we gotta have another famous mythological creature.
Yeah, the gigantic hydra that will take over. Is that Edo Castle that he summons?
I think you're in Edo at this time.
Like this is the final fight of the main story, right? Like Kelly himself has used everything, all of his Emrita to summon this gigantic hydra that you take care of. Like this seems like another kind of gimmick fight a little bit because you are running around to different parts of the castle roof and hitting these weak points.
Yeah, it covers every element.
Okay,
and by every element I include poison and paralysis. So each of the heads does a different type of attack based on its element.
But like the main story ends like with Kelly saying, "Hey, I've died and I will be reborn. I've been reborn all this time." Spoiler alert: Kelly is a homunculus who is under the control of somebody else back in Britain. This John Dee character, and we find this out kind of alongside figuring out that Tokugawa wants to kill William because he knows too much, and Hanzo lets him go.
And this is another one where I had to kind of look up more about John Dee. I didn't know a lot about him.
I had to look him up. He's a super minor figure. He was like an alchemist who worked for Queen Elizabeth. But the kind of Coda boss is going back to the Tower of London and fighting John Dee himself, having turned into this Amrita monster called 100 Eyes, who's a big, huge blob man. This looked like a fun fight to me, actually, like a combination big dude and caster.
It is. It is actually just a pure fun fight.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites as far as just, to do. As far as lore and stuff, hey, it's an eyeball man.
It's like, this is the Puppet Master. And instead of just being a sequel hook, they let you go and deal with it.
And so this is another one of those things. Ieyasu actually forbid Anjin from ever leaving Japan. And he never did get to go back to England. He was allowed to send... He actually had a wife and children in Japan. And then married a Japanese woman in Japan, so...
Yeah, so he never went back and took care of John Dee.
He never went back to England and took care of John Dee.
Right, yeah. And then there's a sequel hook that ends up being a DLC hook where William gets like a vision of his friend being in danger, and so he decides to go back. Tell me about the DLC, just kind of in real broad strokes, because we are running up against time.
Yeah, no problem. So we can be pretty quick on this. The DLC kind of recapitulates. Is that a word?
Recapitulates.
Okay, recapitulate. It's a similar concept.
Mm-hmm.
This time, it's Masamune Date.
Okay.
Because you've got to have another famous historical figure trying to do what Kelly was trying to do.
Yeah.
We're going to get all of the power of the Amrita to take over the world. Elizabeth's dead. Everybody thinks Anjin died in England.
Yeah.
The first guy you fight is, he's one of the most notable strategists and warriors, one of the top 3. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's the cousin of Masamune Date, and he's a samurai with a scorpion arm and scorpion tail. He's not too bad of a fight. Next guy you fight is wields an axe. Next guy is fighting Masamune himself, who wields 2 swords. Story about how, he wanted to reunite everybody, but then his cousin got possessed by demons. Oh no, why did this happen? And then your last fight is Maria, the Spanish ambassador, and she uses a straight sword that she uses kind of rapier-like. She's extraordinarily aggressive. It's a duel. It does kind of remind of the Maria duel fight.
Not intentional at all.
It might be intentional. But without the pathos to it.
Yeah.
This is just a evil Spanish ambassador who's trying to win against England.
Yeah.
You beat her, it's a hard fight, and it took me about 3 hours. And then,
That's
move
it.
on.
No.
Yeah. It's short.
Yeah, it's one of 3, right?
I mean, there's more to it. I am breezing through it because of our time constraints, but yeah, you've got 4 bosses, you've got 3 areas, and like 4 or 5 missions.
Yeah. Just the continued adventures of William.
Yeah, I liked Dragon of the North. Actually, I thought it was fun. I've heard complaints of it being too difficult. It is post game, so I guess my build was just good enough where it was challenging without being, other than Maria taking me 4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely Nioh for our purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to walk away from this and never think about it or play it again, and never then putting this entire thing behind me for the rest of my life. Not have any just like for some reason like this has been a game where like people have taken exception with me not liking it. Nobody present included in that, but like. For some reason, this has caused me more grief than disliking any game since Dark Souls 3. I'm looking forward to never thinking about this thing that is for reasons articulated very definitively not for me.
Yeah.
Maybe Nioh 2 will be more interesting to me.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that like at least the DLCs are introducing new enemies, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big complaint, but it's just a little too late for me.
Yeah. For me, like there's stuff about this that would be for me, in this, the system savviness, the customization things, like, and the character action side of this, like I like that would become more of that. There's just other stuff that is more for me than this. I think is an inelegant way to put it. I
haven't even beat Revengeance yet.
Yeah.
What am I doing playing Nioh?
That's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's still Revengeance. I haven't played Bayonetta 2.
Mm-hmm.
There's for character action, there's just ways for me to get that itch scratched, I think.
Yeah.
In a different way.
Yep.
For me personally. Yeah. And
well,
then
I enjoyed it a lot. Actually, after returning to it, after I'd been playing some Bloodborne recently and the Wall of DS3, I liked it more than I originally did when I returned for the DLC.
Mm-hmm.
So, if somebody does want further expounding on the things that we kind of breezed over or does want to talk about it, they can reach out to me. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. People talk about it in our Slack every once in a while for people who are listening who are her patrons.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a good place to get your Nioh chat. Shrine side chat. For sure.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Yeah. And I'm glad that, I feel like one of the reasons why I feel comfortable putting this behind me though is I feel like this was a very thorough treatment. Like, there could have been like a season on it, but this is definitely a little bit more in depth than I expected.
Yeah.
Us to go with it, which is good.
Yeah.
And I really do appreciate, if people did want to reach out to you and chat about this, like how could people find you online?
Basically, the only ways you can really find me is either in the Slack, and I'm fairly active.
Yeah.
Or you can reach out to me on Twitter. So, and that's just my name with an underscore in between it. So it's just Mai English MAI underscore Sinclair SINCLAIR.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we really do appreciate you coming on and helping us out.
And then, otherwise, I'm a boring computer programmer, so
don't
not a YouTuber.
Don't encourage people to find you at work.
Yeah, no.
The way madness lies. Just stick with Twitter and Slack.
Yeah.
So we really do appreciate that. If you do like this show, if you have anything to say about Hollow Knight, hit us up at Duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yeah.
That is the last game we're covering before we get to the Victory Lap season. I've started Hollow Knight. It's very cool.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to be joined on those episodes by Nick Daniel, who is the illustrator for Latchkey Kingdom, Souls of Darkness, and also the my upcoming book Atomic, which is not because I'm not planning to beat it, but because Nick is a ridiculous, huge super fan and has been doing tons of like really amazing fan art. Like that game really captured his imagination.
Nice.
And he's done a couple arcs in his webcomic about it and stuff. So it would be cool to have him on.
Yeah.
What can people do if they like the show, Cole?
Go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv and check out the offerings there. Anything you can kick us is appreciated and necessary. We really are grateful for people who have done that so far. We're going to have some changes coming to that, and we're still working that out. Keep an eye on that space sometime in, let's say, early June.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. And then other than that, ratings, reviews, joining us on Facebook, things like that are all appreciated.
Yeah.
And thank you. Thanks everybody for bringing us, bring this in for a smooth landing.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably about it.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Mai. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. What can they do until next time, Cole?
Watch out for Yokai Watch. Yeah.
You don't watch out for this show, though. You did the same thing last time.
Oh, yeah,
I know. You just do it.
It's a thing.
No, it's okay.
Reality
is crumbling.
Praise the rising sun.
Pokemon.
Praise the rising sun. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Praise the rising sun.
All right. Umbasa.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon